question. Why do I always have a red pill debates and gender war debates and things like that? It's because it's easy to find guests for. Everyone's got an opinion. Generates interest. A lot of people show up, and it's lucrative. A lot of people want to sound off in the comments and super chat me questions and comments. That's why.
But I guess Israel-Palestine's not lucrative anymore.
It is not.
Wait, is it really?
Was it ever?
Yeah, sure
It
it
wasn't ever
was.
like super lucrative, but it did generate buzz and things like that. But no,
I mean, I assume
it,
right
the
after
arguments
October
have been made.
7th, it was lucrative.
The arguments have been made. Everyone's kind of what's to discuss, right?
Where's my money?
Well, where's Lactoid is a question.
Actually, I suppose that's a fair point because really, like, those arguments are the same on both sides, at least for that. And also, it's so much easier to find like cringe leftists to debate on Israel-Palestine than it is to find like right-wing people. Although I should probably see if I can get Cam Higby to talk to me because I would like to debate, more right-wing extremist people on that topic rather than just leftists.
Okay, well, I don't know where Lactoid is, but hi, Joe. How you doing?
Also, I need to get Lactoid
What's
to debate
up?
me on Russia-Ukraine. Hello, Joe.
How's it going?
Pretty good. We're
Good,
just
good.
gonna start because it's 6:00, and when
Sure.
Lactoid gets here, we'll just bring him on. Any questions before we go live?
Not
Okay,
that
let's
I'm
do it.
aware of. We're good.
Okie dokie. Welcome, 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 one and all, to yet another episode of Whick TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And gang, have we got a show for you tonight? Recently, there was an article released called The Lost Generation, which followed the lives of, or the testimonies, I should say, of liberal men, white men, who claimed that they were discriminated against and they lost out on job opportunities because people in the academic sector, in Hollywood, and other such circles discriminated against them and kept them from being able to participate and get lucrative jobs and careers in those fields simply because of the color of their skin. Tonight's discussion is going to be on whether or not DEI creates a situation that causes white men to be oppressed or discriminated against. And if so, is that a good thing, a bad thing, or what? We got some great guests to talk about it. We got one more coming. Hopefully, he'll be here soon. Lactoid should be joining us, I hope, shortly. But it is 6:00, and I did want to get started on time. So here we are. I'm going to pass the mic first to Gibbs, and then we're just kind of go around, tell people who you are, what you do, and your opening thoughts on the subject. Go ahead, Gibbs.
Yeah, so my name is Admiral Gibbs, if y'all don't know me, and most y'all do. I am a conservative commentator from Texas. And yeah, DEI is evil. It's for people that are weak. I've got a lot of experience with DEI. I'm not a liberal, but in this case, I remember when I was at A&M back in the early 2009, one of the things we had to do was a DEI program, and I got in because I'm Hispanic, and they basically taught the most coddling pussy shit I've ever heard. It's white men are evil. They've been doing all this. When white men make up 8% of the world's population now, at some point they're the minority. And it's just, we can't do nothing. And I have to say, really, nobody wonders who built the pyramids in Mexico, even though the biggest pyramid in the world is in Mexico. But everybody wonders who built them in Egypt because people just bitch a lot. And I think that's what's happening here. People just want to bitch. And that's really all that comes down to is bitching. And yeah, it's oppressive towards white men and it's racism in all forms.
Okay, thank you for being here. We will get to it as we go. We have a new contender, right, in this debate. Lactoid's with us. Welcome, welcome. I'll let him get set up, and we're going to give the mic first to Kalinda. Kalinda, go ahead. Give us your thoughts.
Okay. I don't think that DEI is inherently evil. I do think that it is important to try to do something to deal with the problems of like the majority of jobs in certain sectors going to like white dudes and racism occurring because like, and I'm sure that the two conservatives on the panel here will disagree with me, but I mean, systemic discrimination or systemic racism, whatever you want to call it, it is a thing that does exist. But the problem is that we went way too far with it, and there are certain really stupid things that we did with it. And I think that like academia has run way far to the left, and part of that is because conservatives kind of gave up on doing anything in academia, and the entertainment industry as well, which I don't think is a particularly good thing. I'm not surprised when I read that article. Most of the stuff that was covered in there were all very left wing industries, like the media, and then the academia especially was super left wing and stuff. But yeah, so like now basically we went too far, and now we're going to get the swing back. And I feel like the actual truth is that somewhere in the middle we should have something. Like I don't know if I would go as far as to say that it is oppressive to white men, but the left has certainly left white men behind, and as a result they have turned to people like Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes and become like crazy MAGA people because that we have nothing to offer them except telling them that they should be ashamed, and I don't think that was good.
Okay, thank you for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Lactoid, are you ready to give us your thoughts on this?
Can Gibbs go first, or did Gibbs
Gibbs
already go?
went first. We can still keep going though if you need time.
Yeah, give me a
Joe.
little bit of time. Thank you.
Joe, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks for having me. The article's correct in its identification. There is a subsection of what ended up being white millennials, and even in the article, it's very specific about the type of millennials they're talking about. They're talking about white millennials who are in credentialed positions or have some level of credentiality, and then going into the entry level job market. So we're talking about internships, cohort groups, more traditional entry level positions. And the article does this really weird, I don't know if it's doing it on purpose or not, but doesn't necessarily critique anything above it. So when I think about the hiring practices that it's lamenting over, sure, it's very accurate to identify the response, right? There was a clear sort of response that these places, these entry level places, were predominantly white and predominantly male. And as the shift went to trying to make it a bit more, whatever word you want to use, diverse, inclusive, whatever the case may be, yeah, there's going to be a group of individuals that are going to see the short end of that stick. And that was white millennial men in this particular corner of the cohort. So we're not really talking about the type of individuals in situations like Gibbs. We're not really talking about really like working class white Americans. We're talking really specifically about millennial men who happen to be whites, who have college credentials going into the market, the job market. And yeah, the job market is this fickle thing, and they kind of just lost, where they kind of hedged their bets that, oh, the way that the job market treated other people like me in the past was going to work out in this particular case. And I don't really think that was a wise read. Now, these are more liberal arts adjacent industries, like it's talking about journalism, it's talking about higher ed, it's talking about a few other fields that we'll probably get into. And yeah, they saw a shift at the entry level position, the writers rooms, the internships and stuff like that, away from white identified Americans into more just non-white or non-white people broadly. And I think the article does a good job identifying that, but it doesn't really do a good job at critiquing the actual people who have positions of power that have the actual status to determine how these things go about. Because as the article even mentions, those are predominantly white boomers and white Gen Xers. And those are the people who are going to be the sort of stakeholders in power in this regard. And I think it's important to critique those white folks because those white folks want to make sure that they stay in power at the expense of other white identified people.
Okay, thank you for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Last but certainly not least, hopefully he's ready now. Lactoid, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wick. My hair is all wet. I wanted to take a shower to be all fresh and clean for all of you here today. We're talking about DEI, and I'm happy that, as Vance said, right, we don't have to apologize for being white anymore. I think that's a great kind of saying, but I'm a little bit skeptical because this shit's been around for a long time, and I don't know if it's just going away. I think this article does a pretty good job at laying out specific numbers, because when it comes to DEI, I feel like a lot of proponents are very weaselly with the way that they define DEI and the way that and what they say DEI is, to avoid the harshest criticisms of it. Right? It's only when you say, well, look at this specific stat, look at that specific stat, does it actually seem to gain any traction. So I think that the article did a good job at pointing out, hey, here's XYZ institution, here's how many applicants there were, here is how many were selected on the whether it be a tenure track or getting a different upper level position, what kind of people are getting hired by these organizations. And you see, I think, an overt racism against white men specifically, one that they will try to initially deny, but when you go through the whole rigmarole, they eventually get to the point where it's like, yeah, we're discriminating against them. It starts with affirmative action, is really, I think, the first major thrust of a DEI program. And that's been going on forever. I've got a bunch of stats on that. How, if you're a white guy applying to, and if you're an Asian guy, holy shit. But if you're a white guy applying to a, upper level, higher level education, you have to do significantly better to get into the same spot as specific minorities, Black people, Native Americans, in a way that Asians don't. Asians have to do better, and white people have to do better. When it comes to journalism, this whole article, I read the whole thing. I thought it was, again, very well done, pointing out how so much of this is old white men pulling the ladder up behind them and just allowing overt, stated, they're not hiding this, stated discrimination to happen against young white men. And yeah, there's a lot of old white men that are in positions of power. But when this is, I think, the critical crux of what I'm going to argue the whole time, which is that DEI treats people as collectives instead of treating people as individuals. It's okay to discriminate against the young white man, in their opinion, because, hey, there's enough old white men. But what they fail to account for is that I am not an old white man. And those applicants are not old white men, and they are people, and they're being discriminated against. And that would be okay, I suppose, if you were okay with discrimination. But none of these types are. They're only okay with it one way, which I think is the problem.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here. We're going to get into it. The first question I have for the panel, and maybe we can use this as kind of like a launch point, and then we can go into all the other things. Who is more oppressed in America in the year of our Lord 2025? White men or Black people? What do you think? Go ahead.
That depends very much on what metric you are using. Very, very much, especially if we're talking about right now. I actually wanted to ask Lactoid a question, but you asked, so I mean, I guess I'll wait. Yeah, I think it depends on what you're talking about, and it also depends on like what you
In
mean
general,
by.
let's just we can just in general. If someone was going to actually have been oppressed in America in 2025, if you think a white man is more likely to be oppressed, raise your hand. Just
Okay, this question's super important. Can I clarify something before I answer?
okay, clarify.
Or are we assuming all else equal?
Yeah, that's the
Yes.
important part.
Then yes, then white men are the most oppressed.
What are we talking about then? Like, we just making up reality at this point, just to fit the question?
Yeah,
Like,
I
what are we
don't.
doing?
I don't think that. Yeah,
No.
I don't
No.
think that
Hold on,
works
hold on.
because
There's
Black
like-
people have to deal with a
there-
whole bunch of other shit that's not necessarily
Yeah.
about hiring.
Well, hold on. There is so one of the first things when I started law school was we had to do before we even got into law school. We had to do a pre-class thing, and it was about this book titled "Evicted," and it was basically like to introduce us to property law and renters law, and basically it was from the perspectives of landlords. There was two landlords, and then there was about 10 different tenants, and every person that was in this novel that was basically an African American, except for the landlords, and they basically wanted to paint these landlords as evil, but the landlords were like, well, these people just don't pay. And I go and get whatever. And basically the whole time it was an excuse of why, oh, I don't know, this one lady decided she was going to spend her rent money on drugs and why it wasn't her fault that she couldn't pay the rent and how the landlord was evil for kicking her out and all these things. And then they did exactly what you just said. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but they did exactly what you said, where they said, hey, it's because they have all these other ideas that are just being pushed on them, all these other problems that they deal with. It's not that they're equal. No. It's that they're equal. It's that then people choose to make bad mistakes. And this is just a product. DEI is just one little facet of this handout mentality that the left has gone in full swing with, and they just want to give it away at the expense of white men. That's what they want now.
Gibbs, do you think people are products of their environments, or does everyone just need to act better and automatically their lives will improve?
I think people have to take some qualities from their environment, but that's not an excuse to be a scrub. I mean, I come from dirt poor, and I thought I could have done quite well. You know, if you're maybe a back bitch, maybe that's your fault. I'm sorry.
Not
maybe
everybody.
The joke is picking up by the bootstraps, but there's a reason why.
Yeah, I know, but
anybody can
bullshit.
do that.
That's bullshit, though.
It's not bullshit.
Not
are you telling me that
do that?
Hold on. I know what a guy that was a legal immigrant that came here is now a legal immigrant, and you know what?
All you gotta do is throw anecdotes at me.
Three jobs. And guess what? He's got a Porsche, he's got a brand new house, and he's now a citizen. You're telling me that
immigrants tend to work really, really hard in order to get where they are.
Oh, so you're telling me a legal immigrant with no education can do it, but it's too hard for the person living in America.
I'm not saying that it's too hard.
I
feel like you don't
understand.
Joe, let's give it to Joe for a second, please.
Gibbs, I think you're kind of ignoring structural realities that people live under. Like,
bitch assness. That's what I'm ignoring.
Okay. So like,
and pusitis.
Let Joe go.
Joe, this entire
sorry, I was just identifying the diseases he was describing.
Him denying people are products of their environment.
Is there a structural difference from an American descendant of slaves and a black immigrant? Do they have the same type of structural challenge?
Yeah. Actually, you're right. Yeah, there is a difference. One of them has benefited from the American system, where they benefited from all these wonderful things of being American. Another person has come from literally nothing and has had to work hard to get there. You're right. There is a difference.
Do black immigrants come from nothing when they come to the United States?
Most immigrants that come to the United States come from almost nothing when it's from lower socioeconomic classes.
Is it nothing or almost nothing? I'm trying to understand where you're at.
Listen, I'm not going to play this Destiny word game bullshit debate. Nothing or almost nothing. This is pussy bullshit.
Destiny in the room
right
now?
You know what I'm trying to describe. Is Destiny in the room right now? I don't know. I mean, if you're going to act like him, I'm going to call you out for act like him with this word game bullshit. I mean, what does it fundamentally matter if they have $1 in the bank or no dollars? Oh, you think they don't have nothing? They have $1. Like, how
do immigrants get to the United States?
Oh, well,
especially the ones from Africa.
Some of them swim. Some of them take a boat.
Immigrants. So we're talking about black immigrants. How do they get to the country?
Oh, black immigrants. Okay. Oh, well, I would assume
so how do they get
a plane
to the
or a boat? They take a plane or a boat.
So that plane costs money. Getting a place to live when they get into America costs money.
Oh, yeah.
Getting the means to even go about navigating wherever they end up costs money. So they're not necessarily coming from nothing, correct?
Oh, so if you're a refugee running from whoever and you're an immigrant here, you don't come from nothing.
We're not talking about refugees right now, dude.
Well, it's just convenient that one of the largest groups of African American immigrants, which is refugees, is just being ignored in this scenario. Like,
no,
refugees usually get help when they come to their country anyway.
Did they come here in flux? Did they come here in flux after the Vietnam War? Whenever it felt, they came from nothing, and they do fine. So what's your excuse? Like, that's really what's going on here.
The thing that I'm kind of like, look, you don't have to do the aggro thing. Like, I'm just chilling.
I mean, I don't have to. I'm just angry that you're sitting here already being slimy and lying about it. Like, that's what I'm
lying about. I never made a Did I?
You already did the
make
bullshit thing.
claims
Is it
one way or
nothing or
another?
almost nothing? Yeah, you did. You
Yeah,
already went with the thing. Is it
because that's
nothing or like if you're gonna be bad faith, at least be upfront about it.
Nothing and almost nothing is a significant difference
Oh yeah,
when we're
yeah.
talking about.
What, I got a penny in my
going-
bank account. I don't have nothing. Is that what's the significant difference?
What you gotta let Joe finish a sentence.
Yeah, this is
please.
never.
No, I wanted to
yeah.
answer that question. I have a penny in my bank account. Now I have almost
Tell you
nothing.
what,
What's the
for every
significant? What's the
sentence he's
significant
allowed
difference?
to finish, I'll make him answer a question. Okay.
Okay, fine. I'm not
So
gonna
far,
be
he
convinced
has
until
to
he
answer
answers that.
zero
Hold on. Well,
questions.
then
I
he
just
wants
wanna
to.
make sure
Well,
that
that's
you
fine.
know.
I'm
Hold
just
on.
gonna keep
Hold on,
interrupting
Gibbs.
until he answers
I just want to
question.
make sure that
I want to
you
know
know
what the
so
difference
far
is.
the count is.
Well, he hasn't
he has to
answered the
answer
question.
zero
Hold on. He
questions.
asked me that
He has
question,
to
Wick.
finish
And
his
hold on. He
single
asked me
sentence.
that question. Well, that's because he asked me a question and I answered it, and he hasn't responded to my question back. What's the difference between if I have one penny in my bank account and $0? Don't run from that question. What's the fundamental difference in my day-to-day life if I have a penny in my bank account and zero?
If
And
someone
don't
has,
lie.
can I answer? Is it okay? Am I lagging? Okay. Jesus. It's functionally zero on both ends. $0 in the bank account and a penny in the bank account is functionally zero.
He's not talking about those kinds of people, though, Gibbs. He's not like
That's literally what he just did. That's literally what he just did.
No, if when he said, "What's the difference between nothing and almost nothing?"
Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm trying to understand why you're responding this way. It's not. We can move on from this, but if this is how you're going to interact, it's going to be a long night.
Oh, it's going to be a long night.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
Hold on.
Could I clarify something that was said before?
Sure, Lactor.
What I meant
Go
by
for it.
Sure, what I meant by all else equal, and I think this is the thing that this article complains about, and really, I guess, what I complain about, which is when you look at these opportunities, the question is, are you giving them to people who are individuals who are poorer, or are you giving them to individuals who happen to look like people who are poorer? That's the question.
So
Because
I actually,
do I think that whiteness is oppressed? I do. It is true that black people have higher total rates of poverty, and if you were to define poverty as oppression, then you could maybe answer the question a different way. So I'm being ultra charitable when I'm saying, like, it depends on what you mean here. But
Sure.
it is absolutely true that I think the worst spot to be in is a poor white man, where not only do you suffer from the sort of the systemic inequalities or whatever that come from poverty, but you don't get the disproportionate scholarships, grants, and if you're trying to get into journalism or college, these fields that you would get if you were black.
the black people
But,
don't
like-
necessarily like the really poor black people that you're talking about, though, don't necessarily get those scholarships either. I mean, I would imagine because they would have
Poor
to
black
actually
people-
Because they're not going to college. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not to cut you off there midway. Calcade?
Kalinda.
What's the name? Kalinda. Sorry. Poor black people live with poor white people, and poor white people live with poor black people. America's not completely stratified where you only see pockets of poor white people and their existences are so drastically different from their other cohorts. So I'm trying to understand like what you mean exactly.
What I mean is that if you're so I feel like the point you just made sort of cuts against you, because if you're saying, yes, they're part of the same communities and they're living in the same circumstances, then
They're
why
the
are
same
you
class.
basing? Sure.
So
Then why are you
does race
basing all
matter?
these? Then why are you right? Why does race matter? Why is it that when you apply to college as a black man, it's easier for you to get in? Why not base it off of poverty, where you're in the same place, same class, like you just said?
Yeah, it should be based on other metrics.
Okay, but this article, I think, is
when it comes
complaining.
I'm against
Fair enough.
diversity when it comes to these sort of like immutable characteristics, and just because somebody is black, therefore they're special. You're not special because you're white. I'm not special because I'm black. And if we make that the baseline, we can engage with things a little bit differently. Are there structural disadvantages that black Americans face in the United States? Absolutely. That was what I was trying to go with when I was talking to Gibbs. But it seems like he doesn't agree with the idea of structural disadvantages. But I guess supports the article.
It's ridiculous.
So there were not structural advantages given to non-white people.
It's okay, Gibbs. We know you don't live in reality. I mean, you are a conservative after all.
No,
and
I
you
mean
support
seriously,
Trump.
like
You're right.
Like we don't have to. We don't have
I
to.
mean, I don't live in reality. I don't live in reality when Trump's our president, you know,
No,
and
we
he's
don't
got
gotta-
over half the population voting for him, and the Democrats have the lowest percentage of like approval in years.
You
You're
check
right. I
that
don't live in
approval
reality.
rating
No,
lately,
it's
buddy?
you.
Can I ask?
No,
I just want to ask
wait,
Joe.
real quick.
Joe,
like,
Joe,
Don't
Joe,
get too
can I ask you a
triggered there,
question?
dude.
I want to.
Point. Let Joe
Sure.
finish his
I'm
point.
not triggered at all.
No, go for it, Lactoid. I'll pick.
Okay, maybe you can use this as a segue. I just want to ask you, when you're talking about like systemic advantages or systemic disadvantages, a black applicant to Harvard breaking into the top 50th percentile of academic percentile of all the applicants, the top 50% has a 22% chance of getting in.
Sure.
If you're a white applicant and you're in the top 10%, you only have a 15% chance of getting in.
Yeah,
Is that a systemic advantage for black people?
Yes.
Okay.
Like when we're talking about the when we're talking about the application practices of certain Ivy League institutions, it's absolutely obvious that Black Americans had a potential advantage. But Black Americans were not really going to Harvard like that. So Harvard kind of shot themselves, and other institutions kind of shot themselves in the foot. Like if you were to look at the sort of individuals that are applying to Harvard University, you're not going to see the sort of very diverse cohort of Black Americans from different economic backgrounds, different class backgrounds, different sort of social rigors and cultural rigors. It's probably going to be quite similar to individuals who are just applying to Harvard University. You still need a level of credentiality. So they shot themselves in the foot there, where it's like, okay, if you need to accept X amount of people and you only net like a couple thousand per year, you're kind of stuck in this endless cycle, which is why like if it was like a different conversation, right? Like if we were to look at Harvard's application processes and it showed that, oh, they're tapping themselves in all areas that Black people exist in, inviting them to apply, giving them opportunities to apply, whether it be rapid, I don't know if you had this, but like rapid recruitment, where basically schools go in and say, hey, if you apply, we'll give you a exception or rejection on the spot. Like if they were doing different types of like actual admissions to like all different groups of people and can demonstrate that with all their cohorts, then yeah, we can say it's like a clear advantage for Black people. But most Black people aren't applying to Harvard. They're looking at other schools, especially when it comes to like Ivies, you know?
They're usually
I understand
going
that,
to
but
historical Black colleges, right? Or is that
right, but this is why I'm going
to college.
Well, this is why I'm going off
Yeah.
of percentages, right? Because
Sure.
if there was a smaller number of total Black students at Harvard, which that's true, but it matched the applicant ratio, then that wouldn't actually demonstrate necessarily that they were being favored. But when you look at the percentages, that when you do apply, you have an easier chance of getting in. And this is what this article goes into. Not only does it talk about the percentages of like white people that get through to the final round of hiring, it talks about how many of them actually applied. And what do you see? You know, over half of the applicants come in from white men, and then that percentage continues to shrink and shrink and shrink until even for NPR, it was like, what was it, 13% of all the new hires were white or something along those lines? Yeah, and that was the government until just recently.
Yeah, and these are just to be clear, these are, and like I mentioned at the top, like these are entry level foot in the door positions, and these are already hostile. When I say hostile, just like kind of volatile. You're not really staying there for long periods of time. I think the retention rate is anywhere from 1 to 5 years, which is pretty standard for those positions. So, but in a lot of ways, which I understand why people empathize with that, is that like it's a drastic shift between what was before. And these institutions just kind of didn't care. They were just like, we're not going to. Sure.
Hold on. You just said that. You just said, I was just told I don't live in reality. Okay. And then you told us earlier in your opening, your direct words were, oh, the job market just changed and these people just went in there with false expectations. This is not that. This is what we call a casino, right? Where you go in and you know you're going to lose and you gamble, right? Except instead of a casino where you go and do this willingly, this is something where, oh, I've got my career. I've been told my whole life, go to college, get my degree, and you'll have these jobs, which is what you said, sure. But then somebody comes in and goes, hey, we're going to rig the system now that you put in this your whole life, spent all this money, got these loans, all these things. We didn't give you the other advantages we gave Black people and all these other people with affirmative action. So you already worked double as hard as they did. And then now that you're here, you're going to get fucked. And now that's the problem, is they're purposely getting people to go into a system and then they're fucking them on the out. That's the real problem. And y'all are going, oh, skill issue. No, the skill issue is that y'all sitting here saying we need DEI in the first place instead of saying everybody should just be equal. Stop being a pussy. If you're poor and you make it, you make it. If you don't, you don't. Get good scrub. That's really how simple it is. Why?
Except
Why
that
are you
doesn't
saying
actually
that everybody
work, and it's never
does work. It does work.
No,
I
it
can give
doesn't.
you lots of examples.
Because
it does
no,
work.
you can
in
give
America,
anecdotes.
For years. If you go look at studies, I don't know if they're still active. But
Why is it that the majority of black people make a? Why is it that black people make a medium income of $48,000 a year?
Statuses, generally, it's the American dream isn't going from poverty to being a billionaire. The American dream is coming here going from like low class to like, I don't know, upper middle class or middle class. That's the American dream, is moving from one social strata to the next. And when y'all sit here and go, that's not happening, you're just lying. That's the facts. We know that happens. And that's the problem now, is that it's not happening anymore.
Why is the black...
I want to give it to Linda. Kalinda, you have the mic. Go ahead.
Okay, you know what? I'm just going to talk. Lactor, I want to ask you a question, because it seems like out of the two of you, you want to actually have a more productive conversation instead of just... I'm just curious.
Damn, Gibbs.
Do you recognize that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the one who doesn't believe in reality.
Let her finish.
Shut up.
I'm the one who doesn't believe in reality.
Jesus, you're so triggered right now.
You get to attack me and then me say nothing. I'm sorry.
Linda can't finish this sentence either.
Well, she just invoked my name. I'm sorry. This guy loves to, yeah. Listen here. Listen, I'm not going to be told I don't believe in reality when someone's going to sit here and say, oh, he's just denying facts and doesn't want to have enough. Maybe if you want to come back to reality, you can have productive conversation about your actual racism and your white guilt. Why do you hate white people? Let's ask that.
What the fuck? I never said I hate white people.
No, come be in reality. If we're going to talk about reality, admit you just hate white people. That's what you should say.
Kalinda,
I
ignore
don't.
him.
You're just strawmanning right now.
I think you need to answer. I think you need to answer the question first, Kalinda. Are you?
No, it's not. Do you? It's clearly she does. So why do you hate white people, and why do you have so much white
don't.
See.
No, Gibbs, it's clear that you hate black people because you think the reason why they can't do well is because they're all lazy.
Hey, we have black friends.
I said anybody's lazy. I have lots of black friends. What's the point? Yeah, I don't give a shit. I have lots of friends of all races, and they're not lazy. Guess what? They make lots of fucking money.
And you know what? That's great. I love your anecdotes, buddy. They totally.
Anecdotes are reality. That's the facts. You can say anecdotes, but if I go five people to prove my shit, that's real.
Data means nothing as long as you've got anecdotes.
You know what? Data means nothing. That's why all those polls said Trump was going to lose, and he won. Get good, scrub.
I told you Streamer would have been a good pick.
Yeah,
Kalinda,
I'm sure that
you had a question for Lactoid.
Tools are the same.
I'm sure that.
But they're not. Tools are not the same as like data. Like the fact that black people in America make their medium income is like.
You had a question for Lactoid.
Okay.
Don't let Gibbs do this. Don't fall into his trap.
Lactoid, I'm just curious. Do you understand, or like, do you I guess, do you accept the reason why like affirmative action was a thing in the first place, even if you thought it was like a shitty way to go about the way that they did it, or like the goal that it was trying to achieve? Which, by the way, I do think that it was kind of like not a great way to handle that, but I don't know what else. But do you what was the reason why they did affirmative action back in like the 60s?
So
that started.
There was the real reason, and then there was the reason they had to tell the Supreme Court. The real reason was this sort of idea of equity, right? This sort of in America, there's been systemic racism for XYZ years, slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, and then you go into all of that and you say, because of all of this, black people are now disadvantaged, so we have to give them a leg up. We've got to give them an advantage when it comes to getting into college. That was the stated goal. And I think I put that pretty charitably. That was the real goal. And I think I put that pretty charitably. The problem with this, though, is it does the thing that I accused the proponents of DEI of doing at the very beginning, which is it's treating people as part of a insular demographic as opposed to individuals.
Okay.
It assigns a level of guilt, I think, to the white kid who misses out, because there is a set number of seats. When cities are handing out grants, there's a set number of dollars, and there are people who do not get a fair shake, and this the writer of this article included doesn't get a fair shake because of the sins that he never did.
Okay, no, I agree with that. I don't think it's good, like, to blame white people for shit their ancestors did. I am not on board with that crap. I'm not on board with like white guilt. I think it's possible for a country.
You just want them to suffer, though.
Oh, fuck you, Gibbs. I only want you to
Just keep
suffer.
talking. You gotta
Just
ignore Gibbs.
you.
Ignore Gibbs. That's the
You should
stay on
atone for your
target. Stay
sins as a
focused.
member
Go
of the
ahead.
white race, apparently.
Yes, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. apparently.
Jesus Christ. No, so I yeah, like no, I agree. I think that we can acknowledge like that it's possible for America, just like any country, to teach about the bad stuff that they did in their history or that happened in history without like being all like, and you need to feel bad for this because it was white people that did it. I think that's fucking stupid. And there's no reason to do that. That's really dumb. And I agree with you that I think what we should be aiming for rather than like equity or equality of outcome is equality of opportunity. And so I'm now going to ask, like, do you agree that in order to do that, it does mean that certain things have to change so that, like, for example, white or black people or other people who are stuck in like a cycle of poverty have more of a chance to break out? So, like, increase sex education, for example, in the black community, so that like black women are not having kids out of wedlock all the time and then not being able to go to school, or like all these other various problems that they face, or like the increased crime rate and the shitty education that they get in comparison to other people, or in comparison to people who live in richer neighborhoods, and all these other sorts of things that they have to deal with. I think the reason why we decided instead to do, oh, let's just go with the quality of outcome and put in a bunch of quotas, because that was easier, and we would rather do the easier thing than actually try to solve the real problem, which is harder to do. Do you think that's a fair thing to say?
That?
I can. So if you're trying to aim at, if you have some kind of broader, I think there's a way to do what you're trying to accomplish. The problem is it's completely unrelated to DEI. What you would do is the real conversation, I think, should be between there should be two competing sides on a topic, and that should be, should we base some help based on if you're poor, or should we be valuing meritocracy exclusively? And on one side, you can have the ultimate extremists saying, doesn't matter what background you came from, we don't give a shit. Can you do the job or not? And I think that argument has some merit. And then on the other side, you would have the argument of, here is this kid who came from nothing, and yeah, maybe he's a few points behind, but he's pretty fucking good, and he's pretty fucking smart, and he didn't have a private tutor. He didn't get the advantages of having a nice house or whatever. Both of his parents left him or whatever. He had a lot of family drama and a fractured upbringing. Maybe that kid deserves, can fly if we give him a little bit of help. I think both of those arguments perhaps have some merit. But what DEI is unrelated to that, though, right? Because it's not actually about helping people in poverty. It's about looking at specific racial demographics and, in effect, usually taking the wealthiest of those racial demographics and giving them the opportunity. Giving them the spots, right?
Yeah, that's been,
and I think
that's typically been the problem. And then white people have suffered for it. It's usually been the elite people
right.
among the diverse who are filling those diverse quotas rather than the other people. Like usually, by the way, I would say that it's kind of like, it would be like a two-step thing. Like at the end of the day, obviously what we should be aiming for is meritocracy. But I don't think that like right now, like sure, you could say we have meritocracy, but I mean, it's only a selective meritocracy in the sense that it's not really open to everybody because we don't have equal opportunity at the moment, right? Like, do you agree that that's the case? Like that, it's not accessible to everybody unless like they are exceptional people.
I think this is another problem I have.
Ridiculous.
I don't
accept that, Lactoid.
Well, hold on. I've said this to Aiko before. We were having this actual very discussion, and he agreed with me on this. And you can't disagree because then we would look bad. He and I agreed that you really can't have perfect equality of opportunity unless you have perfect equity, right? Because think about this.
Oh, nothing's going to be perfect. Just to throw out there, like we're never going to have a society with no poverty. We're never going to have but all we can do is just keep trying to make things better. But nothing's ever going to be perfect. But don't let perfect be the enemy of the good.
No, I get that. But what I get concerned about sometimes is when people say it's all about, because all this argument, all the DEI arguments thus far have been, well, we're just trying to secure equality of opportunity. But the actual positions is what it usually comes down to is, well, what better test of equality of opportunity is there other than measuring the outcome. You did it earlier. You said, well, why is it that, when you look at the average black outcome or average black income, it's $48,000. How is that not looking at, that is looking at an outcome? In some respects, it's also looking at an opportunity, because the children born in those families are going to be born in like a less wealthy household, sure, but then the only way to actually guarantee equality of opportunity would be to what? Reach some kind of equity of outcome amongst all people, so all children are born into equal circumstances?
No, not necessarily.
Actually, if you want to talk about,
You
well,
wanna-
I want to piggyback off that real quick.
Hold on,
if
can
you don't mind.
I
I'm sorry.
answer him?
All right, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I suppose you could do that, but I feel like the solution to the problem is going to be more complicated than just let's give money to people or whatever. I don't know if that's what you're saying or not, but it's obviously going to be that's usually the simple answer that everybody goes for. Welfare will solve these problems, but it doesn't seem to solve these problems. I'm not saying that we should get rid of it unless we're going to replace it with something else that could actually potentially solve these problems. Or I guess it's hard to figure out kind of an answer to that, because that equality of opportunity, I'm not saying necessarily equality of outcome, obviously, but the barrier shouldn't be so insanely high, because I know that to move from lower class to middle class, you know what I mean? Because the American dream
I
is
want to
kind of
piggyback off what you're
accessible
saying here.
to some
Because
groups.
Hold on, just real quick. I know that Joe had a monkey wrench you want to throw in there, and I know you want to say something, Gibbs. So we're
Okay, I'm
gonna
done,
give
yeah.
the mic to Joe, then we're gonna give the mic to Gibbs after that. Go ahead.
I mean, I want to get back to the hiring portion and stuff like that, because I think there's a lot more there. But to answer something that Lactoid was knocking at, you have to look at these things essentially racially conscious while being neutral to raciality. So a way that can look like in practice are baby bonds, as an example. Like a $1,000 stipend, you can call it into a trust fund every year for every child up until they are 18. And you measure $1,000 as the maximum amount to someone in the most amount of whatever's the highest amount of poverty, and then that trickles off to a particular point. But let's say to a max, just in this hypothetical, if you are making over $100,000 a year as a family, or whatever it is, it can be considered upper class, depending on the state, then you'll get say $50, right? I think that's an example of where you can approach the racial component, the fact that yes, different groups are going to have structural limitations financially, while not giving into certain opportunities that might exist for families to potentially game the system just for the sake of their child. If you had a trust fund that said, to my point, let's say in the most extreme situation of, hey, this X family gets $1,000 in their child's baby bond account every year until they're 18, and then that money then ends up into account for their child in their name, there'll be $18,000, and that will be a significant advantage for a lot of people. Would a bunch of people get $18,000? Not necessarily. One year they might get the full 1,000. Some other years they might get anywhere from 500 to 600. It's going to vary based on the family's income. It's because we got to recognize that, hey, all these people, whether you like it or not, are coming from families, and children are not able to actualize themselves as participators in the market. So we're just I'd rather be in a situation where we give kids, and who eventually are going to be adults, and they're going to be adults longer than they are children, opportunities to have at least a financial starting point without solely relying on the parents for that. Parents can obviously supplement and put more money in these type of things that they will like, but at the very least recognizing that, hey, this is the baseline. That's an example of a racially neutral but racially conscious policy that could help everybody.
Yeah, so I mean, back to what Lactoid and I'm sorry, I forget your name again. I apologize.
Kalinda.
But yeah, what was your Kalinda? I'm so sorry. I apologize. That was not intentional. What Ms. Kalinda here we're talking about is with the equality of opportunity, right? I think cost of living is something to look at, right? Let's just compare two states. Let's compare Texas and let's compare California. Texas's cost of living is $48K, just to $45K to $90K is whatever. So $45K, simple. Like Toy just stated, the average African American income is about $48K. Well, in Texas, you live pretty comfy. That means you have same opportunity as
that's not
everybody.
true,
Hold
though.
on. Oh, it is true. It's absolutely true. And these are facts. We
No.
can Google these if you look them up. The
The-
living wage
the
calculator.
average
Hold
cost of
on. I'm
living
not
is
done.
different
I'm
from
not done.
state to state.
It
Gibbs.
is. Thank you.
You know
Thank
this,
you. I appreciate it.
but-
I'm so glad that you brought that up.
And-
It didn't
and
let me
money
finish my
doesn't
point.
transfer
Hold on. Can I
one-to-one
finish my
from
point?
state
I'd like
to
to finish
state.
my point. I'd like to finish my point. I literally just said, if you had been listening, that we're going to compare two states. Thank you. I appreciate that for stating what I just stated in my few seconds ago.
Texas
and so
and
next state we're going to
California.
look at is California. It's just 57K is the low income. Well, we also know in big cities you have to have higher income because things are more expensive. So you can compare Houston and you can compare where it's 52K and you can compare Los Angeles where it's almost 100K. Now, what's going to be more opportunity if you live in a state where someone has less handouts and less money spent on tax dollars and it's just way harder to live there, like California, or somewhere where, hey, I can make the median income and get 48K because guess what? 50K is the median income in Texas. You live pretty good in Texas. Boom. Oh, hey, hell yeah, boom. So guess what? It's clear to me that this overregulation and this white guilt where we're doing these DEI programs and these welfare programs, it's just a trap by the Democrats to increase people to sit here and live off the government and live off the backs of Americans.
I
that are spending tax
apologize,
dollars.
Gibbs.
It's evil. It's evil.
I'm not following you here. What
Well, I
does
know.
I'm not
just real
either.
quick, just let
Please.
me get my question out. What does
Sure.
and I'm genuinely asking here. What's the difference between the wages or the medium income in Texas and California have to do with DEI?
Well, exactly. That's what
Thank
I'm
you.
trying to explain here. Is so
It
they
doesn't.
were
He
just
just wants
talking
to rant
how-
about how much
Oh
he
no,
hates Democrats.
it's not that at all. You just stated talking about equal opportunity and equity and all these good things that we're trying to achieve. Well, what's going to be easier? We talked about average income of African Americans. If you're an African American in Texas, where they don't have as many DEI programs across the board, where they don't have as much welfare handouts, where they have lower taxes, where they have these policies that actually help African Americans, guess what? You can live good in a state where you make 48K and the average income is 48K, and then you need cost of living 45K. That means you have extra money to spend and blow. Right? Guess what? Versus you live in California where the average income is lower and they have all these policies. They're big on DEI. They're big on welfare. They're big on affirmative action. These are things they push in this state, and we can see the real-time results. We can talk about living
real
Hold on,
quick,
let me
in
finish.
California,
let me
do you
finish
know
it.
it's California? It's
Hold
illegal
on, let me finish.
to use race in
Well,
applications.
supposedly
That was
illegal
changed in
a lot of
2000.
places. Yeah,
Like they
sure,
got rid of
it's
it.
illegal a lot of places, but they embrace ethnic stuff all the time. We see this with
illegal.
how they give out. It's
It
illegal.
is. Like
Not
they
hold
passed a law
on.
in
But it's not
2000.
illegal
On
for them
paper,
to.
yeah.
But they also give benefits to companies that do stuff like I don't know, help immigrants get driver's license for illegal. So yeah, pretty interesting how that works. Here's my point though: is we can compare two states, one that implements all these policies like welfare, like affirmative action, where they say they don't do DEI, but then turn around and do policies that are DEI like, right? Versus a state that doesn't. And we talk about reality. It's clear one state is providing for the minorities better. And it's Texas. It's not California. That's why people are fleeing. That's why it's a hellhole. And it's just crazy that y'all want to sit here and talk about reality and then just go, oh, he's changing the topic when these are all issues that are related. You don't like when I bring up these other things because it debunks your argument about, oh, structures. Well, these are the structures y'all have in place, and one's working, one's not.
Okay, first of all, it depends on
I have a
different
question.
parts of Texas for black people make different like amounts of money from what I'm looking at here, like the overall general breakdown. But wait,
Yeah, that
just-
different parts of every state make a different amount of money.
just a
That's-
I
second.
thought
that's-
they all made 48,000.
Yeah, wow. So if in the rural part of Texas you make less money,
Okay,
than
I
in the
know.
city,
I'm gonna
literally
throw
said
flag
that.
on this
You're
play.
just going to repeat what I said the
I-
whole
Just a second.
time.
Let me
Then
ask
I'm
you-
just gonna take
shut
you
up.
down. Joe did that in my right just now.
Okay,
You
I'm
just
throwing
did
a
Shut the
flag
that.
on
fuck up.
play
Let
for
me
both
ask
of
a
you, both of you,
question.
both
I
of
mean,
you,
just
both of
repeat
you,
me. Just
both of
repeat
you,
me.
all of you.
No,
all
I
of
want to
you.
ask you something. Stop being so
all of you,
aggro.
all
Calm
of you.
down.
All of you. Okay.
I mean, I
Throwing
just
a
repeated
flag
what
on
you
the play.
said.
I don't think that the disparities in median income. That's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk
But
about
it is, Wick. It is, Wick. That's part of it, right? Because this is what they keep coming back to. They keep saying it's the structures. They keep saying it's the opportunity. If you come from a state where I make 48K and I'm the poverty or the average, and the state's average like cost of living is 45K, do you think you have more opportunity in that state due to the structure of that state, or do you think you have less opportunity compared to California, where if you make 48K, you live below the cost of living and have less opportunity?
I don't
Which
think
one
that
do you have more
either one
opportunity?
of those
That's you're
affects
not
my
using.
So
ability
is that
to get a
structure or not? Is
job
that
in
structure or not, Wick?
journalism, to get a job in Hollywood, or to get a job or to
Yeah.
get a position in higher academia.
Wait, you don't think
None
that
of that
matters?
matters.
It
I don't think that
absolutely matters,
matters.
Wick. Okay, so then you want to take off the argument from their side about structures all across the board, because I'm arguing exactly what they're talking about, and you're sitting here saying you don't think it. I know you're moderating, so if we're gonna just debunk structural arguments across the board and they can't make them, then fine. But if you're arguing to say that, then you have to accept my argument as well.
You have to connect
Get-
how the structure applies.
Let me
I
back,
am
let,
doing-
let me
can
back
I-
up. Let me back up,
Oh,
Gibbs, for
We're,
just a
we're
second.
gonna hold on. We're gonna
because I'm
we're
the
gonna
one
give it
that.
to Joe, then we're gonna give it to Lactoid. That's what
Yeah,
we're
I'll
gonna do.
try.
An
I mean, they're
IP poll in
connected.
here, then
Just
we're gonna
because you
give it
can't
to
understand
Lactoid.
how they're connected is
I'll
not
try
my
my
fault.
best. I'll try my best to be as simple about this. It seems like Gibbs disagrees with this premise, so it's going to be hard engaging with him on this, but let's just kind of lay down the steps, right? Everybody has different engagement with the institutions in the United States. There were particular things that were structurally existed that kept people out of institutions. For example, Ivy League schools didn't have a lot of Black people not that long ago. Why? Because of segregation. Um, most Black people, the institutions had to build new institutions just so that Black people could go to them. That's why we have historically Black colleges and with that being said, when that system of segregation, racial segregation, different types of racial stratification, once that eased up and Black people are allowed to be full participants in America, then you saw that, okay, you don't necessarily need to have Black exclusive universities to make sure Black people get educations. But when you look at that type of structure, if you have family that have a lineage of engaging with institutions like that, it's possible that they're slightly behind from other individuals who didn't have to deal with that. Does that necessarily mean that a structural barrier within a family lagged significantly from generation to generation? Not necessarily, but it's definitely a factor in someone's particular social, cultural, and economic history. Like if you were Black in America, you were barred from the housing market up until about the 1940s and 50s. And some would argue it still has never stopped. When it comes to banks, those exclusatory practices existed. Do they exist now in 2025? No. Does your family, possibly if you're a Black American in the United States, have a lineage of that structural imbalance? Possibly. That doesn't mean that every single Black person faced those limitations. By and large, if you were an American descendant of slaves, it's very likely you did. Stuff like that. And it's not exclusive to Black people. This happened to women. This happened to Mexican
Can I ask you
Americans,
a question though, Joe, on
etc.
that?
Yeah.
Can you connect that to whether or not there are barriers today to getting a job in
Yeah.
a certain industry? Like, so,
Sure.
oh yeah, go
Let's
ahead.
talk
Can
coaches.
you do that, please?
Let's talk coaches. In the NFL, if you were to talk about, hey, what's a Black job in the National Football League? And if you said cornerback,
Head coach,
you would
super
be
bad. Super Bowl
no.
champion, head coach. Yeah, Mike Tomlin. Boom. Into that.
Do you know how many starting white cornerbacks there are in the National Football League right now?
This is so dumb. That's just like when people say, "Oh, the quarterback's position is a white quarterback," and now every quarterback's a mixed guy. Like this is ridiculous. It's so stupid. Like, yeah, like I do want to talk. I mean, do you really want to argue football about this and argue position by race? Whoa, I guess all white position is all offensive linemen. Like,
Well, let's.
this is
I
dumb.
want to
And then
hear.
you look at Larry Allen. He's one of the greatest of
Let's
all time.
hear.
He's black. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
I want to hear Joe's
it's so
before we defeat it. Okay, with our correctness, I want to hear Joe's position on the NFL.
Yeah. You have particular positions that you could say almost definitively that they are Black jobs. Cornerbacks, wide receivers, by and large, tackles to a certain extent, but not too much over the past 10 some odd years. It's kind of been a little bit more diversified. But in particular, running backs, wide receivers, and corners. Those are black jobs. You're very not often going to see white individuals in those positions. Does that mean that white people
Hold
are
on. Why is there let's just go one by one through these because this is just fact false.
Sure.
The reason why okay, you talk about running backs. That's one that everybody probably agrees. It's African American running backs. That's great, right? Is it because of their innate African American ability, right? Or is it because the NFL system has switched to a different system that moves away from using things like fullback formation, where you're saying, oh, it's these schools, they have these things. They're traditionally white people only have fullbacks. Or is it because over time, the NFL has streamlined things and just anybody can get in any position? And they just go by the most athletic. And thanks to the evil white man who did eugenics back in the day with slavery, African Americans are somewhat athletic, and maybe they're benefiting from that athleticism and benefiting financially. Would you say that's what's happening? Is that what's happening, Joe? Which one?
I think
is it just,
anybody.
or is it just because they can only play those positions because they're dumb? Like, what is that? What you're arguing?
Well, let him answer your question, please.
Which one is it? Because I was going to give them the benefit.
Yeah, hold on. You've asked him like 3
times
times, but you keep talking after you ask him the question. Let him answer the question. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not done asking you the question, Whit. Everybody interrupts me, but when I interrupt, it's a problem.
You interrupt more than anyone else on the panel.
Well, that's because I get interrupted, so I do back. It's called preemptive interrupting.
Go ahead, Joe. And then we'll give it to Lactoid. Go ahead.
Coaches, athletic trainers, school administrators, high school principals, and the like position black students into those positions and shy them away
Right. Why is it?
from
Why
other
is it?
positions.
Why?
I
Because
don't
they're
have an
athletic,
answer
or is it
for
because
you.
they're dumb? You tell the answer. Well, you played sports, clearly. You know, right?
Why is this a binary?
Well, because it matters.
Like-
because my argument is because it's not an inherent African American straightness. Your argument is that it is. I'm saying the most athletic
What?
person is going to get those positions. Just like Wes Welker played wide receiver, even though he wasn't black. Just like Steve McNair played quarterback, even though he wasn't white. Just like Mike Tomlin, he won the Super Bowl. He was black. It wasn't because he was in a white position as a head coach. No, but what you're saying is, oh, it's because the NFL streamlined these positions and they're only there either because they're so simple that old black people are, even though they're athletic, they can run it, so they're dumb, so they play dumb people positions, or it's because they're just so athletic. So which is it, Joe? Are you calling black people dumb?
Hold on, he hasn't.
I know he hasn't made the argument. I'm taking his argument to the
interrupting
conclusion.
him.
No, he just made the argument, and I asked the question.
No, what?
You're
okay.
taking it to a conclusion that's so
Well, I'm taking it to the
bizarre.
conclusion that it should be taken to, because that's what you're just afraid to say what you want to say. Say your facts. You're saying they're either too dumb to make it or they're athletic. Which is it?
No, that's not what I would say.
So then why do they play those positions? You said I don't know. Then why'd you even bring it up?
I think to something that you're kind of trying to knock at, but I don't even think.
No, why'd you bring it up then? If it's not well, Joe, you just said this. You said it's da 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 da, and then when I brought that up, you said I don't know. So then why did you bring up why they play those specific positions?
I need him to be server muted, or I won't be able to land this plane. I'm sorry.
I want to know specific. Go ahead.
I won't be able to land this plane if he keeps interrupting me.
Go ahead.
Okay, that's Poseidon, but go ahead.
So when you have all of these people in positions of power moving a cohort of individuals to these positions, you're going to lead to outcomes. That outcome is, as you finally make it to the NFL, that is now a black job. Being a cornerback is a black job. Being a wide receiver is a black job. Being a running back is a black job. But why isn't a quarterback a black job? It's possible because, and there's so many examples with this, so many examples of athletic individuals who also have quarterback talent being moved away from the quarterback position to play wide receiver, running back, cornerback. So many examples of this. We don't even need to go down that route unless we really want to talk about.
We do need to go down that route. No, we need to go down that route because
Okay,
you're wrong.
sure.
You're lying. No, you're absolutely. No, I'm sorry. You're lying. You're like, all right. Do you want me to start
Okay, are we
listing
ready?
all the? Hold on. Yeah. Do you want me to start
unleash the
listing
beast?
all the
You good?
quarterbacks
Did you land
that
your
play
plane, Joe?
in the NFL? Yeah.
No, I didn't.
No. Well, no. You
Well,
did
I
land the
mean,
plane. What's
Go
the
ahead.
okay? My
Land
question.
it. No one's stopping you.
I'm trying so hard. What? Trying so hard.
He's server muted. I don't know what else to
Oh,
do for you.
Why can I hear him? What the?
I don't
I
know why
too
you
can hear him. I don't think you server muted him. You just muted him for
It's just
yourself.
no. I mean, it's funny.
Oh.
He's funny.
Oh
He's
my
serving. He still hasn't
God.
landed the plane.
How do I? I thought I server muted for all of you. Damn.
I mean,
now we
he's been
know
talking
why-
5 minutes
now-
and still hasn't answered the question of
Now we know
why they
Dictator
go to these
13
positions originally.
Now we know why Dictator 13 is Dictator 13. All praise be admin Dictator.
Okay, I didn't know the.
There
I
you
didn't know
go.
the
You did it. Yeah, you got to pick the
Okay.
server mute option instead of
Sorry,
regular
my
mute.
bad. Okay, sorry. I thought I was like, why is he keep stuttering? I don't know.
I can't believe that. God damn it. Okay. So like I meant, it's
It's okay.
I'm
He's
so,
booming
so
out.
First of all, I'm so sorry. That's on me.
Like it's
That one's
booming
on
out.
me.
It's all right.
Go on.
So anyway, you have basically all these different people in positions of power pushing
Uh-oh. Did he freeze for...
running backs, absolutely. But permanently, you see this consistently where athletic players in quarterback positions get pulled away from the quarterback position because ideas of like, oh, you have a better opportunity to start, you have a better opportunity of making a roster, yada, yada, yada. When in reality, I think it's probably closer. If somebody wants to play a particular position and they have the talent to play the position, that's like a coaching thing. It's your job as a coach to cultivate that talent, and they don't make it into that position and let the chips fall as they may. Now, the reason why I bring this up is that you can have structures that are passive, much like the structures that Lactoid was talking about that he's against, which I agree with, is that you don't have to say definitively that like, oh, white people should not apply to these positions. You have to do it in a way that's kind of socially and culturally accepted, that if you enter into this, then maybe you should not, you should go somewhere else. And that happened definitively with black players when it came to skill positions like wide receiver, like quarterback, like running back. So the way that you fix that, and the NFL's for better or worse trying, is that they're discouraging that practice, discouraging the practice at the social level and cultural level of, we are going to cultivate a culture that doesn't pull people away from positions that they want to. Obviously, skill sets matter. So if you are somebody who is under 6 foot and want to play quarterback, you're obviously going to have a difficult time compared to somebody else. So there are still sort of realities to the position, but by and large, there are numerous examples of players getting discouraged away from quarterback to playing other particular positions. And I say that like one of the things that I think you have to do if you're trying to go against DEI is you're going to have to change the culture of how we include people in particular places like the workforce.
Are you ready? Okay,
Yes.
Okay, now. Okay, Gibbs, you're back.
Well, I'm glad. First, I want to talk about server mute. Joe needed me to server mute, one, because he's a pussy. I've never once asked for anybody to be server muted on the debate panel before. I'm a man, not a bitch. Joe's a bitch. Secondly, I want to say the reason why Joe wanted me to be server muted is so that he could lie. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to lie uninterrupted and me not challenge him on his facts. Guess what? Right now, currently in the NFL, 16 of the starting quarterbacks are African American. And guess what? There are more mixed descent quarterbacks also being played. So he's just lying. The reason why Joe is sitting here doing this, and he's still never answered this question in all of that 10-minute fucking rant that I had to be quiet for because, oh, he's a pussy. He never once answered why this change happened in the first place and why these people in this group specifically were pushed into these roles, these specific places. He just said it's some grand conspiracy. Oh, all the cornerbacks are black. Oh, all the running backs are black. It's got to be a conspiracy by the white man to push them into these roles because, oh, the white man don't think they're too smart. They don't think they're good enough to play quarterback. That's what he's saying. And whether he wants to admit he's saying that is literally what he said. And then he tried to caveat at the end. He goes, oh, well, some athletic talents are a thing. Well, guess what? That's how it's always been in college football. You notice Alabama is a dynasty. You know why they're a dynasty in college football? Because they have all sorts of players from all over the United States. They pick the most athletic and they bring them on their team. A&M now that the NIL is going, guess what they do? They pay the best players to go to A&M. Johnny Manziel was a great quarterback. You know why? Because he was flashy. He was good. He put people in the seats. And he guess what? It wasn't because he was white. He was controversial. Guess what? Steve McNair, Reggie McNeil for A&M. He was black. Every Aggie in the world loved Reggie McNeil. Didn't matter whether he was white, black, purple, orange. It's because he was athletic. Vince Young might have heard of him. National champion. NFL kind of fizzled out. They were Steve McNair, Aaron McNair, Donovan McNabb. I can just go down this list. Joe is just lying. That's what's happening. He's lying because he can't make an actual point and has to sit here and serve me. We can go down the list. Oh, why do they play wide receiver? Well, that's not true. Some of the greatest wide receivers of all time are black. Some of the greatest wide receivers of all time are also white. It doesn't matter. They put the most athletic person or the person best suited to the system. The NFL is almost the perfect example, and especially the NCAA, of what happens when you let capitalism run amok. These teams go for the best available person, and they pick meritocracy. What these people want, they want evil. They want racism, and they want to put it in structurally. This is why they still can't debunk my argument from earlier about standards of living, because they sit here and talk about all these structures, and then we come back to the same opportunities, which come from income, come from equal opportunity in a state, and then they go, no, that doesn't count when we talk about structures. It only counts about what happened 150, 200 years ago with great-grandma Sally being a slave, not what it happens when you come here from a refugee country like the Vietnamese after the Vietnam War. It's just pussitis. And I'm done now. Thank you. Thank you for lying, Joe. I'm glad that you proved you can only make a point when you lie and have to have your server muted in order to do so.
Is the only hold on? Can I? All right, never mind.
I said, yeah.
Well, let Joe
Do you even
respond.
watch the NFL? Do you even watch the NFL, Joe?
I said explicitly that there are a myriad of reasons that.
What was the reason why they went there in the first place? You going to answer that question yet? You still don't run. If you're going to respond to me, answer my first question. We've been waiting 30 minutes for it. Why did they push them into those? Well, the question is, why did they play those positions? Hold on, why did they play those positions originally? Was there a grand conspiracy because they think all black people were just too dumb to play all these other positions, or is it because they were athletic and skilled in those positions? Why did they go there?
I don't know.
Answer it, Joe, because it matters to your whole structure argument for the NFL. Why did they go there originally?
Can I ask a question?
Can
I ask a question about the NFL?
Of course, he's going to run. He's running because he knows I'm right.
Do we have data on how many people apply, or the races of the various people who apply to certain positions that typically go to black people or white people? And how many of those people are black versus how many of them are white? And is it like, are they just choosing the black guy because black guys typically occupy this particular role? I don't know anything about the NFL.
Yeah. Would Joe be a bigger DEI for NBA?
Well, I want to know the answer to Kalinda's
Joe,
question.
DEI for NBA?
Hold on, I want to know the answer to Kalinda's question first. Do we have the data on how the percentage of black people who try out versus white people who try out, and who gets accepted?
So players get drafted into the NFL through essentially a draft lottery. There isn't really
they have walk-ons as well and a practice team. You're wrong again.
I wish I could just finish a thought, Gibbs.
I wish you would just stop lying. I wish you would stop lying.
Gibbs. Shut up.
Okay, well,
hold on. You are stopping him from answering my question.
He literally just lied right now, and you didn't even answer. You didn't even call him out on it. He just said, "Oh, the only way is this."
He said essentially they get through the draft, and that's just true.
Essentially, okay, essentially, okay. Is that the only way they get in there?
No, of course not.
Okay. Are there more people? Hold on. That's not true at all.
This is a different thing now. We're doing a different topic. Gibbs, why are you making this entirely hard?
Because he doesn't want to have a conversation.
I do want to have a discussion. I want to have a good faith discussion. But what is happening is every time I sit here, I say, nope, that's a lie. You'll say, so, okay, fine. And then I point out, guess what? Did you know, once again, he's going to say drafted, maybe for most of the starters. That could be the argument if you wanted to say that. He never said that. Oh, guess what? Many, I would say, is hold on. I don't know what they're
going to say because you don't let them finish saying it.
Because they're lying once again, because essentially most of them don't come from that. Most of the players in the NFL, other than the starters, come from.
I don't know what they're going to
say.
That? Because you don't let them finish.
Were you going to say that, Joe?
You have to let them finish their point, and then I will allow you to respond to
whatever,
their
man.
point, and you can inform me why their point was incorrect or why it was false or why
No,
they
no,
were
you're
wrong.
supposed to be the moderator. If you're gonna fact check him, like you got to at least know your sport. He's lying. He either doesn't watch the NFL or
Okay,
he's lying.
I
Essentially,
understand.
hold on, wait. Essentially, this is why this is the lie. Essentially, most players in the NFL don't come from just the draft. That's not true. That's not a true statement. Most players in the NFL come from practice squads. They're on practice squads.
You can
That's why you
wait
have people
for
like
him
Joe
to make
Flacco.
that point,
Okay.
and then you can correct him.
Well, it's not a
Because
point.
You're
It's
right.
not a
I don't
point.
know sports that well. That's true. I don't have a good grasp on sports. But here's the thing, and this applies to more than just the sports analogy, man. You cannot stop yourself from interrupting them when they're trying to finish their thought. And you even interrupt Lactoid sometimes, and he's on your team.
Listen,
Your buddy.
listen. That's fine. I'll
Okay.
interrupt that. Listen, I'm going
Lactoid's
to
a
interrupt.
good guy. You
If
shouldn't
someone
interrupt
lies,
Lactoid
if anytime
either.
someone
You
lies,
gotta let
I'm
him
going to interrupt
finish.
Lactoid.
I'm cool with it.
If someone lies, I'm going to call them out. Sorry, Wick. If you're not going to moderate and call them out for each lie and fact check, then I'm going to do it. So somebody needs to fact check.
My
So
job
what-
as a moderator isn't to discern whether or not they're telling the truth or not.
Oh, okay. Well, so yeah, I guess
It's
then
not
go
my
back to
job.
so he can lie unabated.
Yes,
I
he
get it.
can lie if he wants.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. In that case, we're just going to start lying from now on. I got it.
It's our job
That's
to
easy.
fact
We'll
check
point out if
people
you're
if
lying,
they're wrong,
but yeah.
but you don't need to do it by constantly interrupting. You can wait till he's finished, and then you can give your answer and
No.
explain why he lied.
No, that's ridiculous because hold on, no, that's bad. That's bad faith debate. Bad faith debate is letting people just go uninterrupted and lie because then they can say this whole spiel and then the chat can go, "Oh, wow, what a great point." Well, I can make any point, right? We can just say Hitler was right about everything if that's the case.
If
because
that
then
is
you'll
what
just
you
hear
want to say
make
on
a
my
point.
panel,
That's
you
ridiculous.
can. You can
That's
absolutely
crazy,
say
Wick.
that.
But
Now,
Wick, I have no
remember,
respect
this is
for that.
recorded, and people will hear what you say.
It's crazy that you're going to sit here and say anybody can lie and just be it's okay. That's fine. Go ahead.
I'm
I
not
didn't know
saying
we were
it's
liars,
okay. I'm saying you have the ability to say your point, and if you want to make a false point, that is your prerogative.
All sport.
But people will respond to that and treat it accordingly.
Hold on, can I try to build
Sure,
a
I
bridge
guess.
here? Gibbs, is that you? Do you have a dog in the background? Is that you? Is
Oh
that
no,
what-
that's
No,
my
Damn
Lola.
it!
Lola's
cats.
doing
You got any
Lola
pets,
things.
Gibbs?
I have
Lola's
two
mad
cats.
that I'm mad. Lola
I
is
have two cats.
Lola
yeah.
Oh my God!
Lola is trying to defend me. Okay,
Oh,
and
Can
she's
we
just
see your
not thinking.
cats? Everyone saw my cat or one
I
of
will.
them.
I will get a cat. Here.
Okay, go get the cats, and I want to give it
Or
to.
a cat.
So let's give it to Lactoid. Maybe Lactoid can re-rail us. Who knows?
I'd like to lie uninterrupted for no. So I do want to just get some stuff out.
We'll get to
I
that
was
when we
right
debate
into
Russia Ukraine later at some point.
there was oh, I got nothing but truth there. So there was a couple of topics, subtopics that were addressed, and I wrote some stuff down to address them all.
Thank God.
I don't really know. Okay. It was unclear to me what the point of disagreement was on the NFL between you and Gibbs, Joe. But I guess to answer the original question.
Can I try while he's gone?
Well, maybe this might just answer the question, and you can correct me if it doesn't. My belief as to why the NFL, in nearly every position, including coaches, by the way, I didn't know this, but including coaches, black people are disproportionately represented in nearly every position in the NFL, including cornerbacks. And for coaches, they're overrepresented in the NFL. It's now they aren't as overrepresented with coaches as they are with other players, but they are overrepresented within coaches because remember, we're talking 13% of the population, about 19% of all the coaches in the NFL. But I think the NFL is actually kind of a little bit of a good microcosm to explore, like why the meritocracy people kind of have an argument. Okay. White people are dramatically disproportionately underrepresented in the NFL. And the second letter of DEI is equity, which by definition is equality of outcome. This is what distinguishes it from like the 1990s kind of, well, we want more opportunity, kind of the lines that you guys have been giving. These people now, the DEI like focused people, their mentality is different. They want to achieve equity. They want to achieve equality of outcome. In order to do this, what we could do is we can give white players some extra consideration, right? Let's say they have worse stats, worse averages, but hey, right? They're over, I think 53% of players in the NFL are black, which is dramatically disproportionately represented, considering once again there's 13% of the population. We got to get 70% of the NFL to be white. So let's give some white players some extra points when they don't make the cut. I think what we're going to see is a lot of justifiable outrage because teams aren't going to want to do this because they're going to lose. Because at the end of the day, and if they are going to lose, which I would predict happens if you're getting players with worse stats, why doesn't that translate to literally any other field? If getting worse football players would make the game go worse, why wouldn't hiring people for any other position that didn't have better stats, why wouldn't that mean that job get worse? And yeah, maybe when it comes to football, it's a game, right? It's entertainment, even though they get paid millions and millions of dollars. But what if we start talking about, right, one of the things that Charlie Kirk was so maligned over, airline engineers, pilots, doctors, lawyers.
Wait, is there?
I
hold
can tell
on.
you there's a lot of DEI in law school. I
Yeah,
can tell you that.
Do you have stats that show that like hiring someone that like the people in these fields are like incompetent or less qualified or whatever than if they'd hired the white guy? Because it seems like one of the things we've established here is that it's always like the well-educated people who are the well-educated black guys or women or whatever who get into these sorts of jobs who aren't even necessarily representative of like the overall black population, for example. It's just like the exceptions who manage to like make it all the way there, and then they pick them instead of the white guy. But that doesn't mean that person's not qualified.
No. But it does though. Like, for example, when you look at the because when you look at the average scores, when you look at the average LSAT scores of applicants that are admitted, when you look at the average ACT scores, when you look at the average GPAs, when you look at all these objective metrics, very much similar to like the NFL stats, it is objectively true that like the people that are the black people getting into these colleges are on average getting significantly lower scores than their white or Asian counterpoints. Significantly. I can look at the exact number for you. It is significantly lower and almost across the board when it comes to all these scores. Now, the problem is when there's a weird effect where so like in terms of income and like poverty and stuff, it doesn't seem to explain all of these. It explains some of it, but it doesn't explain like all of these gaps. So like when you even when you control for socioeconomic status, you still have lower income mobility of the children of wealthy black families. When you control for socioeconomic status, you still have a higher crime rate amongst black people. When you you can control for that, but that doesn't necessarily. So maybe you're letting like wealthier black people in, but their scores are still objectively lower. And why would that not lead to a less qualified class? And if we don't care about that, like I said at the very beginning, this should be a fight between the merit people and they're poor, they need help people. But race doesn't come into anywhere between these two sides. It's the third side that's coming down from the top.
What if you are racist, right? Let's just take Joe's argument as a racist to the football, right? Say I'm the most racist man in Alabama, and I want my Alabama Roll Tide to win, right? Now you're telling me that there's some grand conspiracy, and they're going to go, this is the most racist guy in the world, right? And he goes, I hate, and says all the bad slurs, but he wants his team to win. And I don't know if you know about college football, they want to win. You think he's going to go, we could basically have that man be a slave for the football team and play quarterback, and we could win the national title, and I don't pay no money, or we can just lose because I'm racist. No, it doesn't make any fucking sense. He's obviously going to say, put him on the team, play quarterback. He's not going to go, he's too intellectually dumb. We need to have John Boy down the road play because he's a white man. Like, it's just fundamentally stupid.
Started stream. I think it was you, Wick.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to show Zero Fucks made a little edit. We have Blacktoid on the screen. And
that's hilarious. That is great.
Hold on, I got to click on it. Is it like a photo or a video? Let me see.
It's a photo.
It's a photo, but you're going to want to mute if you're streaming because you're going to hear us echo.
You see it?
Wick forgot to hit the don't stream audio button.
That does not look like me as a black person. That looks like me in blackface, straight up. That does not look accurate.
So what do you look like as a black person?
Yeah,
I actually have a picture of that. Somebody else did a better AI. I can send it to you later.
Yeah, so actually, a portion of what I was trying to explain was that there are still, especially amongst coaches, very outdated views about race and particular players in particular positions. I'll give you an example of this that happened recently. Deion Sanders essentially suggested that he does not want any quarterback that comes from a non-two-family household. That there needs to be a two-family household, a strong father, but the defensive line, he basically said, I don't care who's behind there.
Do you mean
can be
two-parent
recruited.
household? Just FYI.
Yeah, when I said
Oh,
Yeah,
that,
why
when I
did he
said-
say that?
You
Why
said
did he say that?
two-family household, and I was confused. But go ahead.
I don't
You
know.
missed-
why he
I know
said
what he
that
meant.
because
I know.
I know
because
why he said that.
Didn't elaborate. He did not
No,
elaborate.
no, you
but-
know why? You know why he said that? Because
Why did he say
we
that?
know. Oh, I'm gonna elaborate because clearly you just bring up talking points about football and stats and don't know what the fuck you're talking about. It's just amazing. So let's talk
Can
about
you
Deion
remind
Sanders.
me again
Coach
what I
Prime, I'm
said?
gonna talk. Hold on, I'm gonna talk about Coach Prime for a second. Coach Prime does go into this. He's actually talked about this multiple times in
Yes.
multiple interviews. He wants people at the D line who are aggressive. He wants people that are going to get after it. And he believes that if you come from a single-parent household, you're more likely to have to take what you want because you had to fight to put food on your table. Now, he wants people in the other positions, specifically for the quarterback, for a two-parent household, because they're more, probably in his mind, are going to be more studious, right? He has said this, and they're going to sit here and be more of a planner, not necessarily intelligent, not necessarily better at school, but someone who's going to sit here and be a little bit slower to act. So whether if you think that that's inherently racist, that you think people having to fight for shit just because they're single parent, well, I guess you're calling one of the most decorated African Americans in sports racist against his own kind. That's
Yes.
crazy. I mean, are you
Yes.
calling him a race trader? Is that what you're calling him?
I'm
You're
calling
calling
him a
Coach Prime a
coon.
race trader?
I'll go to the
Oh,
next
you're
level.
calling him a coon. You call
Okay,
him,
whoa,
Like-
let's
Like, what do you
Right.
want me to say? What do you want me to say about Deion
You
Sanders
call him-
having
God.
outdated views?
That's
about-
crazy. You
Yeah,
don't
having-
think that if you come from a single parent household, you
Okay.
have to fight for shit?
Okay, both of you, please. What we're
Like,
gonna do?
I don't know why we need. If I can't be charged if he's charged.
You can be charged.
All
I'm
right.
just saying. I don't look. At the end of the day, I would like us to get off the sports because I just don't know enough about sports to have.
I'd love to
a
as
strong
well.
I have a second paragraph written down. I actually have 4.
I would
but
like
we-
to get off the sports as well
Because
he's
I
gonna
can-
lie
I-
about it.
Let's
Fantastic.
let Joe finish his point, and then we're gonna go to Lactoid. Go ahead.
Okay.
The point
Thank
that I
you.
was trying to make was that yes, there are coaches and people in high positions who have outdated views, like Deion Sanders, about individuals. The idea that somebody with two parents is inherently so different that they're more studious and more go-getcha than somebody with a single parent is a ridiculous
I don't getcha.
claim to say in public. Like, you could say that's definitely racialized,
That's
sure.
not what he. That is not okay. I like it once again. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that you have a certain structure, right? Y'all the ones talking about structures. He's saying they're going to act a certain way.
Still
they're going to
ridiculous
have different
claim.
reactions. Oh, are you saying that people that come from a family household are going to have a different reaction to threats on a football field than say somebody that's like a one-parent household who's come from a poorer background is going to have to be more aggressive? Like, you're saying that's not a mentality. Y'all are the ones who just asked me literally earlier in the debate. You and her both said, "Hey, Gibbs, do you agree that like your culture, or not your culture, your situational
now your
situation,
environment
you're like-
matters?
yeah, exactly. So now
Oh,
your
I
environment
see.
matters
That's
or it
very
doesn't.
selective.
That's what
of
I'm
you.
saying. I mean, you're the ones who just asked me that.
Your
so now I'm
environment
saying you don't believe
only
that. Like,
doesn't matter when you.
so either it
about,
does or
like,
doesn't.
Getting out of poverty. No, I'm not saying that
Hold
your
on,
environment
I-
doesn't matter. It can, although I feel like on an
I'm-
individual basis like this is kind of silly. Listen, if you want to say that, like, look, if you're talking to an individual, let me make this point because this is important. If you're talking to an individual, okay, you're not going to say to them, "Oh my God, dude, I'm so sorry. You're never going to climb out of poverty because that, like, you have been structurally discriminated against, so you're fucked." And like, you may as well just not try. That's not what you're going to do. You're going to encourage them to do the best that they fucking can, and you're going to point them to ways in which they can improve. But we're not. When I said that about the products of environments, I'm talking about individual or like the whole group, not just individuals. But yes, it's kind of silly to look at an
That's what he's
individual,
talking
especially someone who's in the NFL, because these people are going to be exceptional people in comparison to everybody else. Then yeah, it's kind of outdated to say, "Oh my God, this person comes from a single parent household, so they must be X, Y, or Z."
Therefore,
Oh, good.
When
Then
they're
racism
probably
solved.
considerably
Racism solved.
exceptional.
No, we don't need
solved
affirmative
racism
action.
here on Whick TV.
No more
We're gonna
DEI.
give
We
it
don't
to
need DEI. It
Lactoid,
doesn't matter if you're a
okay?
single parent
Yeah.
household.
Recreate
They admitted it.
racism.
They admitted it. We
Now
don't
that
need
we
it.
solved the
Yeah,
problem, Lactoid is
and
here
look,
to bring
sure.
racism
Well,
back.
So we
Yeah, and for
established
the
we
record-
need DEI in the NFL. We need more white players. We got to get
Apparently.
the worst white players on the field. We got to get that percentage right to where we want it.
I'm
We got
ready
to
to
make
take
it
up the
exactly
charge. I will be
equal.
the quarterback
Yeah, yeah.
of
Hey,
the Philadelphia Eagles from now on.
perhaps
Right.
you should be.
There's not enough podcasters. I would be the first. It would be a
That's
brown,
true.
Well, I mean,
groundbreaking
this seems to be some
In
kind of
fact, I'm not
disagreement
aware of
between
any
you.
Australian Aboriginals that are currently on the NFL. They're dramatically just
Hold on.
underrepresented.
Well, I
Oh
don't
no,
know.
I'm being silly, but go ahead, Lactoid. I want to hear your other point.
So I wanted to going back a little bit. Gibbs made a point, and I love you, Gibbs. It's a little bit disjointed, but you made a point about Texas versus California when it comes to we look at the overall economic system of these two states compared to each other. And I think what the point here is that people who appeal, the proponents of DEI, in order to justify their overt discriminatory policies, again, because they are seeking equity, an equal outcome amongst these kind of invented demographics. What they'll point to is structural inequality or structural racism or structural oppression, et cetera. And they'll use that term, institutional, structural. And what it usually boils down to, though, is just some kind of nebulous of, well, that happened and that happened, therefore I can't show that it actually affected you in any meaningful way, or that it's responsible for your situation in any meaningful way. But generally speaking, it probably is. Or generally speaking, your specific situation can be explained by these specific events that happened in the past. What Gibbs was making the point is, if you're going to make that argument, the argument can be made right back at you for any solutions that you would propose. Joe, you brought up like giving people money when they have kids. Okay, so you're gonna, yeah, sure. So you're gonna get that money, I'm supposing, from somewhere. You're gonna tax that money, and you're gonna
untaxed.
Where does the money come from?
You can, depending on the state, it would cost New Jersey, I think, to do that program now, retroactively 5 years, anywhere from $1 to $2 billion, which can be allocated through a few different ways. The way that a lot of people in the circles that I'm in argue is through an incremental tax increase to people making a certain amount of income. You can also do it. Right, but the point is there's one way of many that I've heard. Another way, you can just have it baked into certain funding packages, in particular ones that are funded a little bit too much already, such as law enforcement, certain avenues of energy, etc. But the one that I've heard that's got some most traction is through some type of stimulus.
That's tax too.
Yeah. It all comes from taxes. It all gonna come, Joe. With all due respect, it really is all gonna come from taxes somehow. This is how the government raises revenue. And if you're saying, well, maybe we don't raise new taxes, but we take from the budget of something else, like the police, for example, this is also gonna have.
You can do budget reallocation to fund it. Therefore, you're not increasing the taxes on anybody. That's what I was trying to say.
I understand.
I didn't know I was gonna defend baby bucks.
Well, you brought it up, which is why I'm using this as an example. I'm going to address other examples in a second. But if whether that's a new tax that you raise or whether you take that out of the existing budget, the things that you're taking from, first up, you're removing money from those projects or services can also have systemic effects that can be difficult to measure on any given thing. But there's been attempts that are tried, and it is true that when you cut police funding, there does seem to be a correlation in crime associated with that. And so you can look at that and say, well, what about the systemic effects there? Does that mean that we're responsible for that many killings? What obligation does this give rise to? And there's nothing you can propose that isn't going to have some kind of systemic effects. What the proposal is when it comes to these DEI programs is very specifically to address the sort of nebulous systemic problems with solutions that create nebulous systemic problems. And it doesn't even, I guess, hit at the underlying point of what obligation do we even have to solve somebody else's systemic problems? What obligation do I have that I can be disadvantaged or that I can have my work taken from me to solve somebody else's systemic problems that I didn't do to them?
I mean, I'm not
sure.
I wouldn't think that. Never mind. I'll let you go, Joe.
So I tried a few things, right? Like when it comes to something like baby mods, you would still need to stress test it with cohort groups. That's still something that has to exist. You have to actually do the thing in isolated examples, doing a bunch of different types of research within these groups, etc. Which is why a lot of times these studies don't come out for years. Like there was just a DEI, not DEI, excuse me, a UBI, Universal Basic Income cohort in some country in Africa, whose name I don't remember, which just finished.
There's been a few.
Yeah, and these are just wrapping up, and they started like 10 to 20 years ago. Like you have to do longitudinal studies that's going to last like decades, so that you have the data to say, hey, is this scalable? How can we do this thing in mass? These aren't particular policies that are going to just be like a snap of your fingers and there it goes, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is tied into that, I absolutely agree that one of the questions that you have to kind of ask is, what are you trying to solve with whatever situation that you're dealing with? I do not think the solution is to just think that, oh, just because they are Black, they're qualified for the role, or just because they're white that they are qualified for the role. That's nonsense. But there are certain realities. For example, I'll just ask this very directly to you, right? I'm going to go to the NFL again, but it's a very quick
Sure,
to
that's fine.
the NFL, and then we're back. Right? Out of the 32 teams entering into this current calendar year, there were only 6 head coaches that were Black. Is that a problem?
No, because that's more than their population as a percentage of the U.S. Black people are not half the population of America.
So
what's their assistant coach populate? Like, hold on, how many assistant coaches are there?
No, we
That's
can just go off head coaches. This I think
No,
exemplifies
include
my
assistant
point.
coaches.
I'm asking you if it was a problem or not. You said no. I agree. Can we move on?
Okay.
Well, wait, how many assistant coaches are Black? Let's ask that.
I don't give a fuck, you Neanderthal. Can we move
Why?
on?
Wait, hold on. Can I ask one
Well,
question?
okay, that's fine. I mean, you're pissing and you want to run from real questions. Every time I ask you a question, you still didn't answer my first question for 20 minutes, like an hour ago.
I wish I cared. I'm no longer nice to
Well, you don't care because it debucks your point every time.
For 90 minutes.
Well, I know. No. You don't care because your only points are lies. You brought up the NFL. You've been just dominant on both facts.
And your hair is musty.
Yeah, my hair is musty. Listen, and your hair is ashy, and you're ugly as sin. That's cool, bro. I don't give a shit. I mean, I'd call you a Neanderthal too, but like, then y'all would call me racist. Yeah, that's cool. I'm proud of you. I mean, and you still don't get laid. And that's cool. Listen, bro. You look like there's like fermented cheese under my nuts. I don't give a shit what your opinion is. This guy's wearing bro. Have you listen? You're literally wearing like a
hold on, give me
$18. This guy was here. What's that even for? $18. Bro,
Bro,
you're wearing a Walmart shirt
everybody-
talking shit, looking like you went to Great Value.
Okay, everyone's getting a mute. This is Christmas time, and here I am having to be a mean man and mute everybody. Okay, what we're gonna do is, I believe Joe Lewis was making a point. We're gonna let him finish a point. Once he's finished a point, we're gonna let people respond, and we're gonna do you one at a time, because apparently none of you can behave, and you have to be treated like children. I don't want to treat you like children, but I will if I must. Okay, Joe, finish your point.
Fantastic. So I don't agree with diversity for diversity's sake. I'm not exactly sure anybody on the panel really agrees with that. I think everybody on this panel agrees to some capacity that merit plays some type of role. But the question that I think presents itself when you have a United States that is so racially stratified in particular positions, I guess the question to you, Lactoid, is how do we assess these things if they are issues in the first place? I mentioned structural because if you say, for instance, in K through 5 education, it's dominated by white women. Not just women, white women. They make up anywhere from state to state 80 to 90% of the teaching roles. Should there be more male teachers in K5, which is my first question? And then the second question is, if you think that there should be, and that is a healthy thing for children, how should we go about that if the cohort, the group of people who are in this field already, is dominated by white women?
Okay, I'm going to mute Joe. I'm going to unmute Lactoid, let him respond, and then we're going to give the other people a chance to weigh in. Go ahead. And I hate that I have to do this way, but my God, Santa Claus has you all on his naughty list, and this is the punishment you get. Go ahead, Lactoid.
You're right, Wick. I'm sorry for interrupting so much and talking over people. To answer the question from Joe directly, and then I actually have a question for Joe afterwards. K through 5 education is dominated by white women. I haven't looked into the stats on this. I'm just going to accept what you're saying is true. It certainly seems true to me. Intuitively, I would expect it to be true that the vast majority of K through 5, probably 80 to 90%, I could believe it. I could believe that that's about the percentage of women, K through 5 educators that are white women. Is this a problem? I don't
The
see
Grinch is
why. I don't see
green.
why it would be a problem. You said
I guess
before that you
Wick's
don't agree with
discriminating
diversity for
against
diversity's
green
sake.
people.
So you would have to present to me in some way, is white women being teachers, are they less effective? Or is it less, does the actual program become less effective because such a large percentage is dominated by white women? And I'm not convinced about that. What I think it is that women, because there's biological differences between men and women tend to have the way their hormones and personality tend to be structured is it tends to be more of a nurturing parental role, and they tend to be the kind of people that would be interested in things like early childhood education much more so than men. And so that's my guess as to why there's such a over dominating role of women in that specific field. It's a little bit dicier if we're talking, because I think with genders there's clear distinctions as opposed to with racial categories. So I don't think K through 5 education is maybe the best example we can go through. But regardless, I don't see there's a problem, and I don't see problems arising. And then my question for you, Joe, is you brought up the it was only 6 of the 32 that were black. And then I pointed out, well, this is still overrepresented when you compare it to the percentage of black people within America. Why? I don't think that's a problem as long as the NFL is not being racist in their hiring practices, in which if they were, then it would be a problem. But my question for you is, why don't you believe it's a problem? Why don't you believe it's a problem that black people are so overrepresented in the NFL, even in coaching roles, and white people are underrepresented in coaching roles? Shouldn't we have some kind of program to get more white people into coaching roles?
Okay. After you answer and be quick about it, I do want Gibbs and Kalinda to be able to get a chance to have their say. But go ahead. You're now unmuted. Go ahead.
If white people want to be in the NFL, they should have the opportunity to try and their shot. They have a bunch of different ways of trying to get in there. I would probably surmise that a lot of individuals who are going to college are probably just going to college for football, just for the sake of fun, or just for the sake of enjoying the game. Not every single player who plays college is going to enter into the NFL. It's actually a relatively small portion of the population of college football players that make it onto NFL rosters, let alone even wanting to go into that route in the first place. So I think a lot of those white people are going into other positions that probably don't involve chronic brain injury, if I had to make an assumption.
Okay. I'm going to give it to Kalinda, then I'm going to give it to Gibbs. So we're going to mute everyone like little babies, and then we're going to let Kalinda go ahead, please.
Oh, come on, Gibbs. We weren't all interrupting. Oh, God, I said Gibbs. Jesus Christ. See, that's what I was thinking. We were not all
This is
interrupting
why you got
each
muted.
other.
This is what happens when you make mistakes like that. But go ahead, please.
I mean, I didn't make the mistake. There's only really been one person
You
here who's
called
been
me
interrupted.
Gibbs.
I'm very sorry that I did that. That was a
Go
terrible
ahead.
misspeak on my
You
part.
have your the mic now.
Okay, so we were mentioning teachers. I think that the thing that is important that we make sure of is that I accept that there are going to be some jobs, for example, construction workers. That's predominantly a job that would be done by men because that yes, I accept that men are physically stronger than women on average, generally speaking. But I do think that we want to make sure that we're not discriminating against certain people who might want to like get into a certain field just because that they like, for example, nurses are often female, but that doesn't mean that a man who wants to become a nurse should like face extra barriers because he wants to become a nurse. And the same thing goes with teachers as well too. And so like I feel like we want to make sure that this is the case. Like I'm sure that you all are familiar with the fact that after the X-Files came out, there was a lot more women who wanted to go on and like become like FBI agents or work in like law enforcement of that sort because of like the representation that was there. And I think that stuff like that's important when we talk about creating equal opportunity, I'm not saying that it means that there has to be equal outcome. I'm just saying that it would be a good idea to have structures in place so that if people actually want to, like, let's say, climb out of poverty, it is easier for them to do so than right now.
Well,
Like,
can
it
I ask
doesn't,
you a
not
question?
everyone's gonna do it. Like,
Sure.
because like obviously the answer is still like yes, you still have to work hard, but it just shouldn't be like so incredibly difficult where like everything is set against you and
Well, can
only the
I?
most exceptional people manage to do it.
Yeah, but can I ask a question along those lines? So, just so I understand, you want equality of opportunity. So anyone who wants to at least
Yes.
try out should get the shot to try out, correct?
Yeah, basically like if somebody like for example, that's why all those
Okay, so
suggestions that
yes, the answer to the question is yes, because I
yeah,
have a follow-up question based on this.
okay.
Yes,
Sure.
generally, I won't hold you to like
Yeah, yeah,
crazy.
generally. Yeah.
Like generally, right? Why? I guess my question is overall, why? Why? Because I can think of plenty of of examples of where we wouldn't want to force or pressure an employer to hire a certain type over other types. So, for example, if there was a strip club, okay, the Bad Bunny strip club, okay, and for whatever reason, I wanted to be a stripper at the Bad Bunny strip club. Should they have to consider my application?
I mean, no, not necessarily, unless
Okay.
it's a very special type of strip club. I mean, we all know that there is there's usually there's porn for all different sorts of people nowadays. So I know that strip clubs aren't the same thing as that, but I mean, like if someone wants to go into that sort of work, there's usually an opportunity to do so somewhere. Um
Okay.
but no, I
But
get I understand what you're saying, obviously, like, and I feel like that is in particular like a kind of niche thing. But I guess what I'm saying is that it's kind of hard to like sort of quantify this, but I feel like the problem is right now, um, it is
well, we
very
don't have to go
difficult.
strip club. Maybe that was too extreme. Say I own a restaurant, and it turns out that I make more money the more women I have as servers. My clientele, the people in the area, they just happen to like when I have women servers.
Oh, you mean
They
like
enjoy it.
Hooters?
I make more money. I get more. No, not strippers, just normal, not
Wait, are
Hooters or
the
anything. They're just
well,
normally
okay.
dressed, right? But it turns out like I've looked at my metrics, I've looked at what I got going on, and hey, the more women I hire, the more money I make as an owner. Should I be forced to meet a quota of
No,
men? Like,
no, no,
should I
no.
be forced?
I'm not talking about having quotas. I don't necessarily think that
Okay.
that is a good idea. That is not what I am saying when I say that. I'm saying that, like, when I'm talking about removing barriers or whatever, I'm not talking about quotas. I'm saying that we shouldn't like be doing stuff like, for example, raising women in environments where we teach them that that like women can't be programmers or they can't use computers or they're not tech oriented
Yeah.
because that's a man thing. That's the kind of shit that I'm referring to. I'm talking about like those sorts of environments that, you know, people can, and how people are influenced in the media or whatever, you know. Like the only reason why I'm such a computer nerd is because when I was growing up, my dad didn't tell me, no, you're not allowed to do stuff with the computer. Only your brother can do that. And he made sure that both my brother and I were doing those things. But if I had grown up in a different environment, that I might not know anything about technology right now, and I might just like be a complete like boomer, like you, Wick, for example, who can't figure out the server mute thing. I'm very sorry.
I figured it out once I made a mistake, but it's
but
okay. We
but
are going
yeah.
to
Do you
go ahead,
understand what I'm
finish your
getting
point,
at
and we're going to
though?
try to open it up again. And please be good, gang. But
Good luck.
okay, we're going to open it up.
What?
Go ahead,
Everybody
Gibbs.
else gonna talk unmuted? Oh, I get to mute it now. I get to talk now
And
because
then we're going to
everybody else
open it
gonna
up.
go.
Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. So first, I want to start with listen what Fat Don King over here is trying to say. Like he's trying to argue about like talking about people being the C word, talking about people being Uncle Tom's. Like I understand why he doesn't like facts, just like he doesn't like the fact that 47 to 48% of NFL coaches are African Americans. See, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take more money than his whole house is worth, and we're going to burn it because that's all DEI is worth. All right. So this is $500. We're just going to burn it, and this is more than his whole house is worth because look at this Walmart motherfucker. This is his little ashy hair talking about my appearance. What's crazy though is that he wants to sit here and make all these claims, and then what I'm doing is I'm literally burning money because I've earned that in my life. I haven't asked out for handouts like Joe here has. I haven't sat here and cried, acting like I was the crazy little bitch, sitting here going,
Why
I need
is he
people to serve
like
you when people
this?
call me out for lying. This is what the left does. They lie to get what they want. We see them lie. Now, I believe my
straw
opponent over here, she
man.
came in good faith, and it's unfortunate she got caught in the crossfire. But Joe here lies every single time. And guess what? Now you hear some thing going off in the background. We're really embracing all the stereotypes today. It's good times. All I'm saying is that it's wild that the people have all these
Why?
prescriptions, and then they can't live them out themselves.
Okay. Now we're gonna try, and we're gonna unmute everyone, and we're gonna try to be adults today. Will we be
Jesus
able to? I don't
Christ.
know.
Hey,
I'm so
he talked about my
I'm,
skincare program. He's got 25 cents worth of
No.
skincare behind him. It's crazy.
I'm so sorry that you can't use this VOD. Yeah, burning money is a federal crime, my dude. What are you doing, man? Like, we don't have to go like all far for these performance things if we're just gonna do crimes on Maine. But
Oh,
either
yeah, it's a
way.
crime on Maine. Here we go.
No,
Wait,
it
am I the only
literally
one who will be
is.
able to upload this because I don't live in America?
This whole VOD
Yeah,
is
you'll be
cursed,
fine.
but I'm
I mean,
sorry.
he wouldn't have been able to upload it from based off your racist comments earlier, so that's fine.
But like TOS
I listen.
violation,
I know it's more money than you
literal
have.
crime.
Like I understand.
Literal crime.
Yeah. It is a crime. What you've done this whole debate, which is lie the entire time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get back to the actual topic at hand. At some point. You know what? I'm gonna make some money. I'm gonna read some of these super
Get some
chats,
super chats. All right.
and then we're gonna get back and try to actually address something in the article.
Sure.
My Listening Library YouTube for $5 says, answer now, yes or no, Wick. Thanks for the content. And you're welcome for the content. $5 in Zephyr Hash. Most immigrants who come to the USA legally have the funds to support a basic education and capital to start a business. They are vetted by USCIS for it. Thank you for the $5. $2 from No Fucking Way to say Lactoid is cooking. Joe can't handle a real argument. $2 more says Joe thinks government spending can solve economics. $10.
It was to me. I don't.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. But thanks for the money. Give Wick more, I guess.
Yeah,
Is
$10
that
from
what I
Gelatinous
believe?
Rube says, I predict less than 20% will be spent on DEI itself and instead deflecting to how hard life was for blacks. The strategic sympathy reserve is dry, bro. Merry Christmas. $10 from Gelatinous Rube to say, 90 watching on YouTube and only 10 likes. Seize the like button for my enemies, the camps for my friends, DEI. $5 from Alishness. Wait until this guy finds out about the demographics of basketball. $10 from Gelatinous Rube. My prediction has already come true. Wick, read my supers, or I'm going to YouTube redact this part or IRL in a God-affirming way, though. Well, thank you for $10. $5 from Lost Coyote. We need DEI policies for 7-year-olds in manual labor positions. The children yearn for the construction sites. $5 from No Fucking Way to say, Wick, this tip is for your suffering. I left because Gibbs was being Gibbs. But they make you mod like this. Well, Merry Christmas from StreamRift. Well, thank you. And then $5 from Alishness to say, title of the VOD, this video is federally illegal. Find out why. And then $10 from Gelatinous Rube. Gibbs is a fucking legend. I'm sorry for saying you should be Charlie Kirk. Props for having batteries in your smoke alarm, too.
Jesus Christ.
And
Amen.
then
Appreciate it.
£2 from the handle to say, oops. Okay. With that said, you know what? I think I'm going to give it to Lactoid, who's the most likely to retrack us. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, we've been through quite a bit since then. But I guess to sort of finish what I was trying to go on with explaining Gibbs's earlier point.
Mhm.
Yeah, you mentioned a study about UBI in Africa, and I've seen there's a lot of mixed results. Oftentimes, the results are looking at the people actually getting the UBI. But one of the main problems in economics is, unlike other kind of scientific things you can do or fields that you can experiment in, there's no control set. You can't control set as to what these policies might do in America or Sweden or some country in Africa that you said did this policy. All you can't factor in for all of the tack on effects, the systemic effects that can come with implementing XYZ policy.
Sure.
The most you can do is just estimate. And
Yeah.
Gibbs is right when he points out that there is a trend in America where industry and jobs and economic wealth and prosperity and growth is moving in this country to conservative areas, especially the Southeast. Right, it's moving away from the sort of the traditional union protected or very kind of like left wing oriented states, and it is moving towards these more. And the cited reason they give is preferable business policy, employment regulations, et cetera. And how this is related to DEI, because I haven't forgot that's the topic. I'm not just shitting on Dems. Is because a lot of the specific policies that affects these businesses is also related to these kind of initiatives launched, like these DEI initiatives that are launched.
Yeah.
So, for example, like discrimination statutes, for example, even something as what is the general trend of the EEOC in any given state, as opposed to because that's it's federal, but there is a lot of local influence that goes into that, and jury pools, right? All of this matters as well. The actual beliefs of the people matter when it comes to how the law is enforced. So if you are a business owner and which from a purely risk mitigation point of view, you would probably want to be in a place where people don't have this sort of raving kind of disdain towards white people, especially if you're a white person and you maybe want to start a business, or and then there's some allegation later on down the road of discrimination, which happens all the time, sometimes justly, sometimes non-justly, and this affects real world economics. So I think it's more complex than just saying, well, look at Texas versus look at California. But I think there is a point of saying, you're looking at all these systemic effects and you're trying to address them by doing things that are creating systemic effects that appear to be hurting the very areas that you're trying to save.
Yeah. And the question, at least in my mind, is like, what are we trying to solve? Like, what are we trying to solve in diversifying entry level positions, as the article is describing? Like, what's the actual end goal here? If these are supposedly temporary positions, that these were also positions previously that were very hard to climb the ladder. Like, and I guess it's the question to, unfortunately, Lactoid Gibbs, based on your read of the article, because the article doesn't make, and for those of you who are watching, the article doesn't make any claim one way or another. It just says like it's just observing a thing that exists. But do you think that there is some type of conspiracy of these sort of white elites? Because they're mentioned in the article by name. He describes them as white Gen Xers and white boomers. Is there a conspiracy among these white boomers and Gen Xers in positions of power to replace people in leadership positions starting from the entry level and contracted roles?
It depends how you use the word. It depends how you use the term conspiracy. I think that they are aware of it to some extent, but what I think it's mainly being driven. I think what it's mainly being driven by is our culture has developed, I think, in large part. One of the most powerful. There is a mentality that is growing in America, and it's been getting stronger and stronger over time. And there are narratives that are being told, especially since 2014, but even before that. And a lot of powerful people are also aware of these narratives, and they are aware that, well, I don't want to, I'm not going to lose my job, right? I'm the top level, and oftentimes they're far too powerful. And the article talks about this, and it does seem to be somewhat reflected in the numbers that if I'm a top level executive, I'm an old man, I am powerful enough that nobody can touch me, right?
Sure.
So now my interests are kind of separated from all of the larger group of younger white men who are trying to apply to college, who are trying to get these entry-level jobs, and according to Bloomberg, even like mid-level manager jobs. There's also some of this happening there as well. And at the very top, we are safe, and we want to improve our diversity score. We want to kind of feed into this cultural movement because, like I said before, the people's belief actually affects real policy. Right now, Target is being boycotted because they ended their DEI program. And the reason they ended their DEI program is because they sensed some kind of cultural shift happening after the Trump election. Businesses are responsive to what they believe people's beliefs are.
Well, just two things. I have a question for Lactoid, actually.
I have a question too. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. But so
Go for it.
one,
You're the moderator.
do you think that they're ending their DEI program because of a cultural shift, or is it because Trump is coming after people who have DEI or what he calls DEI programs and hitting them with lawsuits and withdrawing any federal funds they may be getting, etc.? So I guess which is the first question I have is which is the reason there? And the second question I would have is, do you think that we've kind of, as a culture, moved away from DEI? At least, and this is before Trump administration, because since 2020, I think I would consider 2020, maybe 2021, the peak. It's people have, in general,
When
just
was
been
the-
moving away from
When was
DEI in
the
general.
guy talking about trying to get tenured? When was that? Because he mentioned specific years in there in the article. And also, I got one question: would you consider someone going for a tenure position entry level? Like that's pretty high level, right? Like, if you're like
Tenure
up
What
for
depends
track.
on what portion of
Tenure
tenure
track.
track you're
Yeah,
It's
trying
tenure
for.
track. It's tenure track, which is
I
sort
mean,
of
that's
entry.
mid level. Yeah, I
Those
mean,
are
it's
entry
Tenure
entry.
track
positions.
is kind of entry.
Those
It
are
depends.
entry,
Sort
right?
of higher.
Yeah, I wouldn't consider. You have to have
senior
a
entry,
doctorate to be.
basically.
Well, you have to have a doctorate, right, to be
No,
going on.
no,
Well,
right? You
well,
have
so
a
I'm talking
PhD.
about. I'm talking about in terms of
No.
most of the time you do, but I'm talking about in terms of like jobs. So yeah, you go through a fuck ton of education. If we're factoring that in, then yeah, I think it's fair to call it beyond.
I
entry.
just want to like point out that y'all saying getting a doctorate or doctorate level and
I
then
won't-
going into something is
Sure,
entry level.
but
That's
I do
crazy.
want-
No,
I do want
As far as-
Lactoid to
as
answer
far
my
as-
question before we
but-
move
yeah,
on.
right. But
as far
to
as
be clear
professors
here,
go,
in that mix-up, the article. I don't know if you even read it. Christ, the article explicitly.
I just
talks
quoted
to-
it.
No, you didn't. But that's okay.
Are you high?
explain-
I know I've been high, but like you must be high.
Clearly,
Like
you've
I
heard
literally
one
just
answer.
quoted an example from the article, and you're going.
The
I don't know if you
article-
read it. Are you retarded? Like what is happening here? Like-
Jesus. The article explicitly speaks to the people that they're talking about, and they explicitly say that they're talking about elite, credentialed, prestige conferring institutions that mediate upward mobility, cultural, authority, etc. But the group of people that they're talking about are credentialed millennials in between the ages of, I think it mentioned 30 and 2014, going into entry level positions such as journalists, assistantship roles, cohorts, internships, etc. Yes.
It also talks
there-
about higher level shit like the track, which you have to have a doctorate for
Certain-
most. So it's not just
But you
that.
don't-
You're
you
making
don't
me act
need
like
a-
I didn't read the whole thing when it talks about
don't-
credentials of multiple levels. Multiple
not
levels
need
of
a-
credentials are talked about.
You
in
do
the
not need a doctorate degree to enter into a tenure track position. In
Not
some
everyone.
cases-
No, but most do. Most do. Yes or no? Most do.
No, not necessarily. It depends
Okay,
on
once
the
again,
field that
lying
you're going
again.
into.
Sure. Go ahead.
I said it
Okay.
depends
Lying
on the field
again.
that you're going into.
Lie count 1 million.
Okay, show me your degrees. You
Okay, you guys.
I got 3 behind me. What you got? You got
real
0.
quick,
Got
just
a
real
wall.
quick.
Shut the
I
fuck
did
up.
ask Lactoid because we
Yeah.
were running out of time,
Yeah.
and I do want my questions answered. I want to give Lactoid a chance to actually answer my questions.
yeah, no, of course, I'll answer it, and also in a couple minutes, I'm actually going to be
That's why I'm
onto a
saying
different
we
panel.
gotta,
We're talking
we gotta
about
move.
DEI as well.
Yeah, I want to answer questions. Then we got to go to. Then we
Yeah.
got to go to.
Great.
Yeah.
So why is Target removing DEI? I think I'm not convinced it's because they're afraid that Trump's going to sue them. I just looked it up. There's no actual like litigation or specific targeting of industries for DEI. There are executive orders that have been signed that are anti-DEI in the sense that they like a great example of this is directing the EEOC to no longer consider disparate impact. This is massive, right? So the traditionally disparate impact, what it means is that if a business, despite the fact you can't prove any discrimination actually happened, but you look at the business and you see, well, that seems like too many white people compared to too many black people, right? Like you could probably, the EEOC could probably look at the NFL using disparate impact and say, look, there's a lot of black people there, disproportionate compared to the percentage of the population. But it's never applied, of course, that way. It's only applied against white people. We think there's some kind of racism happening here. And then the burden is on the business to prove that they're not being racist. This policy incentivizes companies legally to enforce DEI policies, not because they necessarily want to, but because they might feel as though they have to in order to avoid federal scrutiny, right? Which has been going on for decades. This administration, just a week or so ago, directed through executive order to the EEOC to discontinue that practice. So now businesses don't have to fear federal action just because they don't racially discriminate in favor of minorities. I think that could be a reason why they're moving away from DEI. I think there probably is also they felt a cultural shift. And this was true. I mean, during Trump's election, the few months afterwards, there definitely felt to be some kind of strong rightward cultural shift. I think a lot of that's pulled back.
It's the swing back.
But definitely, yeah. And so when you say, like, is DEI kind of outdated? I don't like it, but I don't think it's gone, because I think that there is that swing back. I think you do have a lot of Democrats that are boycotting Target. I think you do have a lot of people saying, like he's, racist, sexist, xenophobic, we have to oppose his policies. And what that usually means, especially with this policy on disparate impact, is they want to bring back the racist policies that penalize businesses for not engaging in pro-minority racism.
Okay, hold on.
Only in the interest of time. Only in the interest of time, unfortunately, because I know that Gibbs and Lactoid have to go. I'm going to give closing statements to Gibbs, Lactoid, and then we get the rest of you. I still have thoughts on this, and I want to talk about it. So if you two, Kalinda and Joe, would like to stay, you're more than welcome to. But if you have to go, I understand. But just in the interest of, unfortunately, time.
Hey, can I request something?
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe we could open the doors a little. Open the door a little bit. Crack a window, see if a person wants to come in and yep.
Oh, you mean open the panel?
Yeah, he's asking for guests.
We can do that. But first, closings for the people who I have invited and who spent their time on my panel. Gibbs, go ahead. Close statement.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was very enjoyable. Fact checking 25 cents over here all night. I'm very happy to say that it's pretty clear that DEI is evil. It's racist. It's evil. It doesn't help the people it's supposed to help. It's just basically another trap that the Democrats used to try to get people beholden to them by saying, hey, we're going to give you free stuff you didn't earn. And who doesn't like free stuff? And so it encourages lazy behavior. It encourages bad behavior. And it encourages bitch-assness. And as we can see, demonstrated by one of my opponents who has been a bitch all night, it's pretty clear that there's the results. You can either have winners and people that are not afraid to dig themselves up by the bootstraps, as people always say, and aren't going to make excuses for their upbringing, and they're not going to call people that are successful from their race derogatory names like a coon. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy, and that's the reason why he hates these people, is because they do better than him. And it's clear that everybody who wants these policies is the same way. So guys, fight evil, fight DEI, join the Republican Party. Amen. And thanks for having me, Whick.
Jesus Christ. Now I definitely can't use this VOD, but
well, I'm Hispanic. You were both minorities can use words.
I promise you,
bro. Relax.
And I didn't.
Not the same. Lactoid, go ahead. But thanks for being here. And check them out, gang. I have links to all these people. Go ahead, Lactoid.
Yeah, so DEI is sort of nebulous now that it's unpopular. But a few years ago, it was very clear what it was: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Harvard put its affirmative action program under its DEI program right on their website. They have since removed that. I wonder why. Cities have exclusive grants for minorities based on their DEI initiatives. Large corporations will often overtly discriminate against white people in ways that would be unacceptable if it was done against any other group, as was described in the article. It doesn't seem to me that our opponents are even necessarily taking up the DEI mantle all that strongly during this debate. Joe stated he doesn't agree with diversity for diversity's sake. Kalinda stated she doesn't agree with equity. She wants equality of outcome. Sorry, equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. So the D and the E, it's kind of questionable whether our opponents even support those aspects of the DEI program that much of the American left has been pushing for. What about I? What about inclusion? What does this even mean? Is this sort of just a thing thrown at the end? What does it mean to feel included? Well, I think a subject that we didn't spend a lot of time on, but I think the article gets into, is the sneering disdain shown towards many white people, and as experienced by the author of this article. So there are stats on this. White liberals are the only group of people amongst any political or racial combination that do not have a in-group preference. They are the only group that has a out-group preference. Black liberals and black conservatives both tend to prefer black people. White liberals do not prefer white people. If you complain about being treated unfairly as a white man, the sneering disdain becomes pointed at you, whether it be Jacob Savage feeling unincluded and unhired and writing an article about it, or whether it be Charlie Kirk's death being celebrated because he points out that non-meritocratic admitting and hiring people may lead to less meritocratic workers. Say what you want, but this culture war stuff does really matter. And it especially matters, as I think the guy, self-described liberal who wrote this article, it definitely matters when it affects you, when it affects you as the individual. It's always fine when you have the job, when you're on top, to say, oh, I don't care about any of that culture war stuff, but it does matter when it affects you. And both sides of the aisle care about it. I think it's not to say anybody here did this, but this is just something that I very often see. I think it's ultra dishonest when people on one side of the aisle claim, oh, that's just culture war stuff. We don't care about that. Why focus any energy on that? When it obviously matters to them, because they are the ones implementing these racist policies and enforcing it, and then boycotting stores when they try to remove it.
Okay, thank you for being here, Lactoid. I'll see you guys later. I know you have to go. We're going to give the mic now to Kalinda, please.
All right. Well, I mean, first of all, I'll just say that Charlie Kirk wasn't like, I don't think Charlie Kirk was killed because of that, or what people didn't celebrate it because of that. I think he said way more egregious things than what you just pointed out there, Lactoid. But I mean, whatever. Not that it justifies celebrating his death. I mean, that's fucking stupid. I don't agree with that on a moral level. Anyway, all that being said, yeah, I don't think that DEI itself is great. Unfortunately, like I said, DEI is a lazy way to solve a problem. Just like affirmative action was the easiest way to solve the problem of this worry that because of racism and like conscious or unconscious, probably more like deliberately conscious, it meant that like not as many black people got hired. And I think that this is an issue. And so in order to solve this problem, they were like, okay, let's do affirmative action. But obviously that's not necessarily a good solution to this problem. I think probably maybe greater education or exposure or something is a better way to solve this issue. But like, yeah, it's because that we would rather, instead of doing something that would take considerably more effort and would be harder to resolve, instead we've decided to do this. Because I guess like that's just the way humans work, unfortunately. Just like how that's why populist candidates are winning now, because they promise simple solutions and they simplify all the problems that we have.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Last but certainly not least, Joe Lewis.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Wick. I tried to keep it cool, calm, and collected.
You know what? I was getting a little upset myself, so that's all good.
Gibbs caught me saying a no word. Hate to see it. Sorry, guys. I hope that money was fake. That would be crazy. But yeah, I think I understand the concern, right? If you have a portion of a group of people, in this case, white millennials who are going into entry-level positions, and the data that the article suggests is accurate, that's a thing of concern. But something that I wish we could have got into, maybe we can get into it now, is I think a lot of these people were just lied to. Like, Gibb was going down that route, which I agreed with him. And so a lot of these men were promised positions, like all you have to do is to go into this and do X, Y, and Z, and therefore you'll get opportunities to move up and make it. But there was so many shifts happening in 2014 if you were 30. You had a recession, you had the recession, you had the two recessions, whether it be the one in 08 versus the one in 14, 15. You had the shift to more like DEI initiatives that led to the very cohort that's being mentioned running into issues. There's just so many things that were happening at the time in the moment. So it's very difficult for me to sort of pick and say like, oh, it was definitely DEI. Oh, it's definitely this and that. I think it's a culmination of all of those factors. Um, with that being said, like, yeah, it's an issue, but I don't know how you put the rabbit back in the bottle because in a lot of ways these are people in high positions of power that are co-signing this, which are majority white men, and as the article suggested, white boomers and white Gen Xers. So it's like this is kind of sort of white on white violence using these sort of like hiring practices and DEI initiatives as a shield just for white people to argue with each other and then blame minorities for their problems, which kind of seems problematic if you ask me. But
Look, the only people we should be blaming for our problems is women. Okay, but finish your point then.
Before
That
you
was it, that
open
was
it
it.
up, I do want to ask Joe some questions before you like.
Yeah, I
start
mean, yeah,
blaming
I have
him.
a couple things to say before I open it up, but
Okay.
we are going to open it up. Well, if we can get, I'll tell you what, gang, we'll compromise. Okay, we'll compromise. If by the time Kalinda, Joe, and I are done having our little tete
Clarifying
on
thoughts.
ourselves, if we can get $50, okay, either in gift subs, super chats, memberships, whatever, we'll open it up and we'll have an open panel on this until I get bored. But
Sure.
you gotta pay to play here in Wick TV land. But I know Kalinda, you have some questions for Joe. And I wanted
I'm
to answer
ready.
that, but I do have some thoughts beforehand that I would like to get out before we go too far. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that there is a reckoning we have to have on the left.
Oh,
We do.
I'm
We do.
listening.
We have to be honest, right? That there has been discrimination. Oh, thank you, Shaved Dog's Ass, for the $50. I do appreciate that.
God
So I
damn
guess
it,
we
you're
are
stuck
open.
here.
Oh, hey,
You're stuck here.
SDA.
We're all stuck here. Okay. Well, there is a reckoning we have to have because there have been portions of the left, not all of them, obviously, but there are portions of the left that have discriminated against white people and men. It just has.
And white
It
women.
just has.
I'll get to that later. And Asian
We're gonna get
people.
to it. We're gonna get to it. Don't worry.
Sure.
Okay. But if we can't acknowledge the reality that there have been portions of the left which have denigrated and made it okay to denigrate white people simply for the basis of their skin color, then I don't know how we can move forward. Now, again, I'm not saying all the left. I'm not even saying most of the left. But there are portions of the left where that is just okay to do. I don't know. Do either of you disagree with that take?
No.
I have to clarify. I disagree, but I don't know
Go
what
ahead.
you're talking about. So when you say white people, are
Yes.
you just merely referring to identifiable persons who are perceived to be white or people who are self-identifying as white? Or
I'm
is
talking
it just
about
kind
people
of
who
both
look
for
like
you?
me, white.
Just people who are clocked as white people in general navigation.
I don't have to tell you I'm white. You know by looking. Okay.
Well, I mean, that's kind of.
I mean, do you disagree with that? No, I don't have to
Well,
tell
the
people I'm
reason
white. They
no,
can
the reason
tell.
why I ask is because like that part's kind of nebulous, right? Where there are plenty of people who could be clocked as white who are not actually white through further investigation, what have you. So I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding like exactly what you're observing. That's
I'm
all.
talking about people who people identify as white, not the people who like, I'm white and I'm proud. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the
So people in public who are clocked
who
as white
just
are
exist,
being
who
picked
look
on,
white.
bullied.
Your standard
because they
white
are white.
person.
Yeah, you're white guy. You're
Sure.
beard, glasses, hoodie, white guy. Okay.
Okay.
That's
Can
what
I-
I'm talking. Well, do you disagree with that? Do you disagree with what I said? That the
Well,
people
no, I
who
just
look
need to
like me
understand
have
it.
been
I just need to understand it
traditionally.
better. Sure.
Sorry, repeat that, please.
No, I just wanted to understand a little bit further what we're talking
Oh,
about.
sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
my whole, just to be concise, and then we can discuss it, and then Kalinda has some questions too,
Mhm.
right? My whole point here is that people who look like me, right, who are just white, just existing,
Just some
have
white
it
dudes.
been okay to shame, denigrate, and disparage them and disinclude them in a way it has not been for any other minority.
Like any other minority.
Not trans people, not black people, not Mexicans,
In the
not
modern day,
any
Joe, like
those things.
modern,
I'm talking about
on
yes,
the
I'm talking
modern
about
left.
because like if you
last 5 years.
if you scale this out, it gets a little bit kind of tricky.
Sure, I'm talking the last 5 years.
Yeah,
Last 5
I
years.
think something that you're observing, which I agree exists, is that there is a lot of people who are, because I think I've thought about this a lot, kind of like what you were knocking at. I think there's a lot of people who are slowly understanding the world around them, slowly understanding and sort of contextualizing how different groups are, for whatever reason, one way or another, historically advantaged, historically disadvantaged. And then in the face of those historical advantages and disadvantages, they just kind of don't know how to talk to people when they're trying to like explain things. It's like, okay, I'm observing a thing, I don't quite understand it, I don't quite understand what's going on. And they just kind of don't know how to like explain or even talk to people. Because I think that's what's happening a lot of the times, where people think that, oh, just because you are X or Y, or in this case, just because you're a white, then you ought to be excluded in the space because you are white, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah, but I mean, this is just a normalized and
Can
even
I
celebrated.
can I give an
thing.
example? Can I give
Sure.
an example?
Sure.
Okay. Joe, do you remember are you familiar with Dean Withers and Parker? Do you know of those guys?
Sure.
Do you
I'm aware of the Discord. I'm aware of the Discord call. I'm aware of the Discord call.
Well-
Them being
well,
excluded.
Now,
for
hold on,
the
let
for
me
the audience who might
let
not
me
be.
let me
Yeah.
finish. Are you aware of like all that the microaggressions drama with Z, where a bunch of black creators basically she was in like a TikTok live with them, and like she
Mhm.
like said some things to them that they perceived to be rude, and then they claimed she was being racist. And then they started saying some insane shit back to her, like they called her like a lipless bitch and stuff, like things that were like clearly directed at the fact that she was white, and like nobody cared. Like, do you remember that? That I
But
feel
this
like is the
was
peak example of like the sort of insane
this was
toxicity.
Sure.
Yeah, it was
I
the
would say
Z
that
is the person who runs the Unfuck America tour, and Parker and Dean were part of it until they got bullied into not being part of it anymore because that Z wasn't going to quit.
and then they picked a sexual predator to lead the charge, and that really worked out. But yeah,
Okay, sure. I mean, I think Unfuck America's been doing fine, but that doesn't matter. That's not relevant to what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about
Sure.
is the fact that like that whole thing happened, and it was utterly ridiculous and utterly insane, and it was crazy how afterwards Dean and Parker both bent over backwards to satisfy the whims of these like insanely toxic black women on TikTok who continuously guilted them over and over again and acted like they had been traumatized because a white woman spoke to them in a way that could be considered rude. That's the kind of shit that we're referring to here. And then they were like crazy racist to her and insulted her appearance and stuff.
Sure. Okay.
I'm just saying, like, yeah, it does happen. Like, I don't think that it's just like, yeah, sure, some of it probably is well-meaning people, but like, yeah, like I've seen it around.
I
and
think
it's
there's
kind of crazy.
Undereducated, very people who don't really understand how power and structure works. They don't know how to engage with people, and then they're given microphones and opportunities. I mean, it probably
It's
was
called
irresponsible.
streamers. Okay, that's called streaming.
I mean, it was probably irresponsible for Dean and Parker to pocket the money that Unfuck America paid them, especially because they didn't have any type of actual time in their appearance.
I don't
Because that
know
was what
if
I found out about.
I don't know if that's
They were paid.
if
They were still paid despite their
okay.
appearance.
I
It's on
mean,
public record.
Actually,
Yeah,
wait,
so it's
no,
like, I think that,
they did go. They did go on like the first of those tours.
but they were still paid their full appearance amount.
Oh, okay. I mean,
which is what I take issue with. Where
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
don't
look,
want
if
to
you're gonna
litigate. I don't
stand-
want to litigate the
I mean,
unfucking
that's
America.
that's
Well, no,
fine.
no,
I
no,
just thought that the other shit was crazy,
part
and
of it.
that's not even what people were
Yeah.
necessarily mad about.
Yeah,
They were
it's
mad
part of
about
it's part of my
Z.
point. Yeah, it's part of my point where it's like, look, if you disagree with something that somebody said to you and whatever, like, hold the line. Like, you have a contractual obligation with your client, which is Unfuck America. And I'm sure these people disagree with what you did and how you want to navigate, but bring it up with them directly. And it's probably not the best situation to have like other people like that involved if the organizer is a sex individual. But again, these are like children, right? These are 20 somethings, not quite figuring it out, not quite engaging, probably don't have the right professional experience or structural analysis to kind of understand what's happening.
I mean,
So
most
they end up
people in
saying
this space
crazy.
are young,
So
but
just
yeah.
if I may interject, just briefly, because
Yeah.
you kind of hit on one of my pet peeves, Joe, and
I don't think there should be a lot of opportunities. Period.
I don't think that we should be treating 21-year-olds as children. I don't think that they are. I think that
Sure.
21-year-olds, 22-year-olds,
Hold the
etc.,
line.
even though they're
Yeah.
young, I'll grant you, that should
But they're
not be
still
held as an excuse for
they
their
still
bad
don't know shit.
behavior.
Well, yeah,
We
they
gotta be
don't,
honest that they don't know
but then they
shit.
get enabled and they're going to continue to behave this way into their
Sure.
30s, you know,
Which is
because
why you
yeah.
need people to professionally cut them out. Where it's like, cool, Parker and Dean are no longer part of this, but you're not either.
Yeah, but no, but Parker
Maybe
and
we'll
Dean
finish out
didn't
this.
cut them out. They caved to those people, and then they cut
Sure.
Z out, and they
Okay.
decided that they wanted to remain as part of that group and like to kowtow to them basically instead
We
of
give
yeah.
as society.
I'm saying everybody is wrong. The people
Okay.
who degraded
Okay.
Z are
Yeah,
wrong.
this
Z should have held the line. D and Parker
sure.
should have finished those contracts, and those women who degraded them should never be called back for any other event ever again.
Yeah.
They all acted unprofessional. Everybody
Yeah.
lost.
This is the thing. Like, this is why I think this is specific example. There's too much extra on the example that makes
Right.
it hard to really nail down what I'm talking about here. But before we bring in the other guests,
I
'cause we
mean,
have
like,
other
I
guests
can
who wanna
just
come in.
say it. Not every black person understands racism. Just because you're black doesn't mean you understand what racism is, how structural racism works. You need to actually have some type of structural analysis. That's something that's off TikTok and off these applications. You have to actually read books and theory to have an understanding, contextualize your
Sure.
existence.
I
And a lot of content
agree.
creators, especially some of the people included in that call, tried to skip that step. They thought, oh, I'll read a couple things. I'll read King, I'll read X, maybe like a couple of King speeches, a couple of Malcolm X's quotes that decide to end up in my algorithm. I'm not going to do anything past that. There's a lot of black
That's
Americans that are like that. And
not like there's a
then they
lot of
run into
Americans,
situations,
period, that are like
yeah,
that.
but
And
it's
that's fair.
especially rampant in communities that don't have the luxury of being structurally illiterate. Like, I don't think black Americans have the luxury of being structurally illiterate and arguing with people on the internet. There's way
Okay.
too much at stake.
I know that Kalinda had a couple questions. After she asked her questions to Joe, we're going to bring in everyone who's backstage. So if you're backstage and you want to get in on the show, or if you're in the chat, if you're on YouTube or you're on Twitch and you want to get in and you have questions for anyone on this panel, including me, about white oppression, quote unquote, and DEI, get backstage in the Discord, and I'll be bringing you in soon. But I
By
want to
the
give
way,
Kalinda the mic first to ask her questions that she said she had. So go ahead.
PD or Punish Dog's arse in the Discord is that's Shave Dog's ass. That's the guy who donated $50
Yeah.
just as an
Yeah.
FYI.
He's
If
back
you
there. I
wanna bring
understand.
him in. Yeah, I know him. So anyway, I mean, I don't know. We probably come at this from a different perspective, Joe. Like, maybe you actually understand some of this stuff more than I do, although there are certain aspects of it that I disagree with. Like, it
Sure.
did not surprise me in the article when it was talking about academia, because academia seems to be crazy far left. And like, I don't like the oppressor versus oppressed worldview that seems to be pushed by academia. And like, that seems to
Sure.
come out a lot in my Israel-Palestine debates. I don't really like the way people look at that conflict because I feel like it simplifies it. And I also feel like that whole worldview tends to simplify a lot of things. You know, like, everything is the fault of the billionaires, and that's the reason why, like, we're all the world's problems or shit like that. Like, that's not necessarily what that's saying, but I feel like that is a big issue. And I think that there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Or for example, you might have remembered the Uber diversity, equity, inclusion lady who got like put on leave because that she decided to have like a program talking about how, like, you know, how shitty it might be for white women to be called Karen, and a bunch of other people there got real mad
Sure.
about that because you can't talk about white women's problems. Like, white women end up getting iced out. Or the term BIPOC, where it's like Black indigenous person of color, and it's like the Black and indigenous people are like elevated above the other people of color because they were more oppressed and they had to deal with more shit, and everybody else is just a person of color. Like, I feel like this is like none of this shit is good either. And like, I think that if we are going to solve these problems, then we should probably come at it from a different perspective instead of this weird oppression Olympics shit. And yeah, but nobody wants to do that, and so instead this is the stuff that wound up winning out because it's much harder to do the other thing, like I was saying.
Yeah, like the question is like, what are we trying to solve, right? If you have, and I tried asking this question in different aspects on the panel, is the problem the fact that structural, like, because again, like, let's just kind of lay down the fact here. Structurally speaking, white men were prioritized in society in such a way where the idea of entering into these rooms was just kind of second nature. Second nature insofar as long as you got the degree, went into the entry level job, did that grind for a bit, you would get rewarded with some type of opportunity down the road. And then what the article I think identified was at the same time, all these people are taking this gamble, because that's what it is. It's a gamble on you're relying on the market to maintain an arbitrary idea of a position. The market adjusted and said, actually, we care about minorities right now. Sorry. Sucks to suck. Should have had a structural analysis while you were sitting on that journalism job. And then they're just kind of stuck where it's like, well, what do I do when the market shifts in a way that makes it so that I can't move in this profession? And all the while, like, yeah, the journalists are going to suffer, the entry level professors are going to suffer, the non-tenure track folks, because they don't have institutional protections. Like, these boards get handpicked. So they're like, everybody above them is protected from the DEI stuff because nobody wants to diversify from power. They just want to diversify from the labor of the power, the labor that like the power tells to do things. And I don't know how you solve for that. Well, I have some ideas. I think you'd have to definitely diversify from power, but that means a lot of white folks are going to lose their jobs, or at least try to shift their job in another way. So they're going to probably have to do it in some type of democratic fashion. Otherwise, they're going to run into trouble. You know?
Well, I mean, I think the problem, I would argue the problem that we are trying to solve is that you don't want to live in a society where like we'll just say like I guess where one particular group of people is more likely to go to prison than other groups of people, is more likely to have single parent families, is more likely to be in poverty, and makes way
More
less
likely
money
to be
than
the president.
other groups.
More likely to be the president of the United States.
Well, yeah, but that just happened one time though, right? And I would argue that
There's not women
no,
are never
I'm talking
going to be
about black
president of the
people.
United States. Oh yeah, I was talking about women. Women are never going to be a president of the United
Never?
States for as long as either of us are alive. No.
You think that? Hold on. Hold on.
I'm
Well,
sure people said that
first of all,
about black people till Obama got
I
elected.
would disagree with you. I would bet you $100 here today that the next 20 years we do have a woman president.
What do you think is going to shift in those 20 years?
I think that it's
understand
going
what
to be
your
a
thought
grifter on
process
the
is.
right, to be clear.
Oh, you're doing that bet. You think
Yep.
that the
Wait,
next
you think
female president's going to be a woman?
It's gonna be someone like Erica Kirk.
oh Jesus Christ, she has no charisma whatsoever. I don't know if that's gonna work. Like
No,
I'll think
what
about
I
that
mean
one.
is there's going to be someone who the right touts as this is the next woman president. Look at this. This is our DEI hire.
honestly,
right?
I think it's more likely, God help us, to be Marjorie Taylor Greene than it is to be Erica Kirk.
But it's going to come from the right, is my point.
That is very possible, but
I don't
who
even think the
knows?
next, like, again, like, I don't think, like I said, I don't think we're going to have a woman for as long as we're alive, like both of us are alive. I don't think the institutions are structured in such a way where women are even positioned to be successful, to run a campaign like that. I think Kamala Harris got lucky and bypassed a lot of sort of the decision-making processes, but I don't think the culture is there. Maybe in 20 years,
And that's what I'm
but
saying. The next 20 years, it's not going to be
maybe.
next. I
I'd
don't
have
think
to
it'll
see
be
a lot of
next
things.
28.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be that.
Like I mean, I did say like I'm not essentially soft today. I'm just kind of thinking a bit more broadly here. Where right now, it's very unlikely.
Okay.
Let alone another black president, I think it's highly unlikely. Because like even when I think about just the construction of power structures, right? If you're a white man in politics, a senator can definitely be something in your future, or a state senator. It's like it's dominated by white men. But then other groups have to always have some type of caveat. They have to be in a district where they are represented in some type of substantive fashion. Like this is generally true for most black politicians, where they're kind of drugged through and forced up through sort of black elites and stuff like that. And I think it's challenging. And then what happens is like the only times you get people of substance, not even of substance, of a candidate, is people that they're essentially hand tapped. Like tapping Jasmine Crockett to be a senator is absolutely insane. But there's no intervention mechanisms for people to understand why that's not a good idea, because we don't really have control over politicians like that. And I think it's of concern where
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going a little far afield here.
Yeah, sorry,
Well,
that wasn't
yeah,
what I was trying to get into. I wasn't talking about
Sure.
women. I was saying that like it's not good when women make up 50% of the population, and I feel like we're probably doing okay depending upon like which race of women you are referring to. I mean, like affirmative action,
Well, it's
apparently is
okay.
like has helped white women more than it has anybody else.
Well, sort of, right? Like
Women
it kind of depends on what you're talking about. Certain industries needed ways of solving for the particular problems. Like in classical music, I can think of an example that orchestras were dominated by face-to-face auditions where you knew who the candidate was once you walked in. Once they changed it to blind, it diversified. So I think there are sort of tools within each industry that can benefit different groups of people. But also, like, what are the industries that women, or even particular white women, entered into where they saw these advantages? You know?
Yeah, no,
I do think that
I understand that, but like yeah, to get back to what I was saying before though, like the idea is that I
Sure.
think it's a problem when there are specific groups of people who are like disadvantaged in a systemic way because of like biases that exist in the system. Not even necessarily because the individuals in particular are biased against these people, but like there are just things that are built into the system. So like black people commit more crime than white people, therefore they are overrepresented in the prison system. Why do they commit more crime? Well, because that they live in greater levels of poverty, and because that they have environments that tend to like it tends to be an indicator of crime, like more single parent households and all of these kinds of things. And so like that's what I'm saying, those are the problems that I think that we as a society should be trying to solve, instead of being like, well, let's just do quotas, so that we can hire more
Sure.
people for I think that's
Okay,
a lazy way
okay,
out.
before
I
we
can
go,
tie it in.
before we go on,
Yeah.
I will read these super chats and then we're gonna open up the panel. I'm gonna bring
Sure.
people on.
And I
$20
will
from
point out
Dirty
so people
Deeds.
walking.
Sure. Says Wick, how can we join this insane asylum of a panel? Well, funny you ask. What you do is you go to my Discord, you accept the rules, you jump backstage, and I'll pull you in. $50 from Jade Dog's Ass to have the open panel. We're going to do that here in a moment. Headless Chicken, $5
another
for your
$50.
patience.
Damn.
Well, no, that was from before, but
Okay.
I'm reading them in order. $5 from Alishness. I hate the idea of so-and-so should be president. Can we get back to caring about what they'll do and not their name recognition? Just to address that, I think that, like, at least for me, when I say I want Josh Shapiro to be president of the United States, it's because of the things that I think he will be able to get done for the United States and his electability as well. I want someone to run for the Democratic ticket that I think will have broad appeal and help unify this country, and will solve some of these issues that I think that are almost intractable. If you had someone like Trump or someone who was like an extremist on the Democrat side, I just don't think that I think that they'll exacerbate it rather than fix it. But
Sure.
with that, let's bring on some people, okay?
Yeah, what I was gonna say, I'll wait till they pop in and then I'll.
Sure, no, you can say what you want to say, Joe. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the battle's gonna be culturally. Like when I think about the sort of audition problem, because someone in your chat observed like a problem where like blind auditions did lead to more women, more non-black people of color, but then it pretty much didn't include a lot of black people. And then it's one part of the equation, because then the next question is, why aren't black people auditioning for these roles? And then when you really pull the tape back, it's like, oh, black students are in a way, one way or another, structurally disadvantaged in music. And then anytime you kind of like have to engage with that, you either get music teachers who try to play the nonsense of anybody can do it as long as you work hard. That's not true. Or they do some type of sort of dodging of the structural issues where like, look, if you want to improve your odds of your kid being a successful musician, get a private teacher. All the best schools across the country require that for their elite programs, and some of them even require it just to be in the program. But guess what, you need money for a private teacher, and they're not cheap, and the good ones are definitely not cheap. So it's not only that you need a teacher, you also need a teacher of substance within your area. And that's not something, not a lot of people can fork anywhere from $400 to $700 additional dollars per month for their child's education for a lesson, for one lesson per week. Um, and on top of that, you need a family that can cultivate the culture that exists within music, which is competing in competitions, whether that be in regional ensembles or beyond, doing the all state brackets within that, because these are all steps that you have to do if you even want to have people who end up being a musician. And on top of that, like, why even go into a field that volatile? So you need to have some level of, for lack of a better term, or idea of financial security just to be a successful musician, period. You need some type of buffer underneath you to subsidize your journey. And there's no way around that. And not a lot of people, black people included, people broadly, have that type of buffer. Where if you're going to substantively fund somebody's music education, we're talking anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 as just the door of entry, and that's not something that people want to do,
I
or
feel
even have the overhead funds for.
that sounds like something that is like that a lot of people are barred from, like not like maybe
Yeah,
disproportionately black people because that they tend to not have as much money even as like white people, but even like probably the average white person would be financially barred from that, like the
yeah,
average white
and
kid's family,
sometimes
like that's
yeah, and like from the educational level that you brought up, this is what I was trying to explain when I was talking about how like structural barriers just kind of reinforce themselves. Like imagine you want to go to music school and it's out of state. So you're paying in-state, out-of-state tuition, and these schools are not cheap. And then maybe you find the way to get the fund, the student loans or what have you, to get through the door. And then your teacher says, you need to get a different trumpet by next lesson. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? And it's like, yeah, all my students use this trumpet. Here's the model, go get it. And then you look online and it's $5,000-$6,000. It's like, okay, do I play on this trumpet that my teacher who's responsible for my grading and journey through this program says is subpar, or do I just switch majors and take the L? Because the university doesn't care once you academically get in. You can switch majors and do whatever you want.
yeah. I mean, I guess the like in that case, I guess the question there is I don't know, that's like some other sort of thing because music is kind of a very specific thing. And like you said, it's quite volatile. Like I the barrier to entry for the just like the
Are we
barrier
going
like
to talk about music?
oh hey SDA. Do you know about music?
A little bit, but it's not really on topic.
Yeah. Well, no,
Yeah,
I was just like, I was using that to make a point of structural barriers that can exist. And there's no real way to DEI that problem. Like it's, hey,
Yeah,
there's
and
a, yeah, go for it.
I don't take super issue with much of what you said, other than you started with like what your third grade music teacher who's going to teach you how to play a recorder or play the xylophone says. If anybody can do music, yes, anybody can do music. Not a lot of people
Right.
can do music professionally. That's all
Or
I would say
even
there.
yeah. And then like because I have this conversation, I say this because I teach, so it's like I have this conversation with a lot of my students where it's like they say, hey, I have a student right now who wants to play tenor, and I told him, you're not practicing enough, and he just kind of looked at me like, what? And it's
Okay.
like, you're not. But anyway,
Okay.
like,
Yeah. Now that we have more people on the show, let me just ask a question. Of the people who are on this show, how many of you are white men? I know I am. Who else?
I am.
So 1, 2, 3,
It's the box I check on the
4.
census, but I don't
Four of
really
us.
identify with
Among
it.
us 4, how many of us
Among Us.
are
Amogus.
do you think that white people in America are oppressed?
Not at all. That's so fucking silly.
I
Yeah,
would
it
not.
depends on what you
I
mean.
wouldn't use the word oppressed. I think that's kind of a silly way to like.
Why?
Because that
Like,
oppressed.
what do you mean when you?
Okay, well, the
Do you wanna get
article,
through
the
the
article we
hands up
were
first?
let me explain. The article that we were looking at today showed, and I think substantially showed, that when these people who were looking to get a career in journalism, who were looking to get a career in academia, who were looking to get a career in Hollywood and writing and things like that, I would say that they have a cause to claim that they were oppressed based on their skin color in these fields. Do you disagree?
Can you link the
Where-
can you
Yeah,
link
where's
the
the
article?
article?
Yeah,
I
that's
joined
really
really late.
silly.
I guess I could, but the article was The Lost Generation. It's in the compact, and I'll just summarize it for you, and you could just take my word
Pretty
for
good
it.
article.
But yeah, they go through their journeys of trying to make it in these industries, and how that they were, again, it wasn't secret. They didn't hide it from them. They were told that there's too many white people in these fields, and that they could not be considered because they were white.
The question is, do we believe him?
I
Do
was
we
gonna say,
believe them? Do you disbelieve them?
do you
I
believe the people
disbelieve
that say I've been oppressed? That's why I didn't make it into X field. It's like, no, you're probably just mediocre.
There's
You
more
believe
to it than that.
you're
It's
Yeah.
not
people.
that wasn't the only data that was used. They also the author of the article also went through and looked at the number of white people that were hired into specific positions and compared it with the number that were hired a long time ago. And they also spoke to people as well about like the rise in like DEI. And for example, when they were talking about academia in particular, it wasn't just about like what your race was. It was also about what you wanted to study, what you were going to be researching, and if it was something that was like considered quote unquote in. So like there was one guy who wanted to study like I think like Roman military history or something, and that wasn't really something that was particularly in, because it was like European and white and stuff. And like this is what other professors said at the university and whatnot. That yeah, so like no, it's not, it's okay to acknowledge that like white people feel like they've been left behind nowadays, because that is a problem, and that's part of the reason why a lot of them have turned to people like Fuentes and Trump and like all of these far right figures, and why like there's like this gap in ideologies on from like like white men. I think they voted for Trump like overwhelmingly, like young white men in particular. It's because that we on the left haven't really like we've been kind of dicks to them, depending upon which part of the left that you talk about. Like we haven't really had anything to say about them in particular, but like we've been so busy trying to help other people.
Oh no. So
I would say
like,
go
ahead.
I would say it depends upon perception and actual consequence of these policies. I think the perception of these policies is far more prevalent than the actual consequences of these policies. I think the consequences of these policies are actually through a very, very slim amount of upper level elite positions that would be considered luxury positions for 90% of Americans in terms of jobs. So I don't actually think it's that big of an idea. And also, too, you said, do you think white men are, well, I suppose,
oppressed?
Right? When you ask the question, are white men oppressed? I would have to answer sure, mostly because I think the individual is the most oppressed unit in society. But if you're gonna white men based off of race, I would say for the most part no. Like sure, yeah, you could
Yeah.
find it,
Well,
but
sure.
societal,
Well, let me
I would
ask
say
you.
Just on
Yeah,
They're
but
just
this
not
is
as
let me ask
prevalent
you,
way-
like,
and everything anymore.
let me
Just
ask you,
on- yeah.
just let me follow up a question to the gentleman
Mm.
who was just speaking. If
Few
you were to
blokes.
say that white men aren't oppressed as a class or as an identity group in America, I would agree with you if you said overall, but if you
I meant
specify it
overall,
down
yeah,
to
holistic.
certain industries, I think that you are just incorrect. Let me give you one example.
Yes.
The writing industry. As a white man, getting your book published by any sort of major publishing group is very difficult today.
Based on what? Where are you getting them?
So most publications
There's like only 4 big publications, but
most publishing houses, publishing groups, right, major publishers are giving they're accepting women's applications, and they're not for men. They're just very few men. It's very, very hard to get published as a white man, right?
Well, that's hold up. That to put a wrench in your argument, that is a the statistic you brought up isn't a white man; it's man in particular. That is a outside of the cultural group. The particular limitations you put on the question. But no, I understand. Yep, and you're correct. There's like 4 major publishing houses, and they control like 90% of the publications. There are independent ones. They're just they're incredibly tiny.
I don't want to be toxic, but are men reading books? Like,
yes.
Just to address Joe real quick. Just to address Joe real quick, this becomes a chicken and the egg problem. If men aren't writing books,
this is racist. Stop.
Well, if men aren't writing books, other men who want to
what do you
read
have against poultry?
Might not actually enjoy the type of books that women write, and vice versa.
The thing that I'm trying
the
to...
industry is marketed far more towards women at the current moment than men. Yeah, that's
because women read more.
They're marketed to more.
How long has this been the case? Because I remember very distinctly
20 years.
I think hold on. One like podcasters makes books. Men read those things, or people that would be equivalent to podcasters, and it's huge. Like, and men listen to more podcasts. Like, oh, is it because men listen more? Like, that's an absolutely idiotic argument to make.
No, so like the problem is because I was reading about this a little bit during the peak DEI stuff, right? Is the system kind of... I don't know how it did this. It was some nasty work, but basically a bunch of black people did an analysis of, I think it was Barnes and Noble, of the seller, like the books that are in the shelves, talking about race, talking about class and analysis, and like sort of like racialized conversations. And they're like, hey, they're all like kind of white women. And then people are like, well, that's bullshit. And then they're like, well, here's the data. And they're like, huh? And basically what ended up happening was like there was like weird shit. It might be different now, because I'm functioning on like 2021 info, where it's like it started out where you saw more people of color in these sort of these bookshelves in the Barnes and Nobles. I use Barnes and Noble because that's kind of like the last mainstream bookstore that exists in most communities. Shout out to the people who don't have one. But then like what happened over time is that like that pool of authors started shrinking and shrinking and shrinking back to sort of just like same shit, different day, where you still had like women represented of these like analyses, but
Robin
predominantly
DiAngelo,
speaking,
is she like one of the kinds of people that you're talking about?
yeah.
Sounds like we have a common enemy. You and me, Joe. And
What's
Whick.
that?
White women.
White women specifically.
True.
It seems like
You're not
had
white,
one
you're
particular
Canadian.
group elevated over. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Can I answer?
That sucks.
Answer for your crimes, Kalinda.
I just want to say, like, well, no. First of all, again, fuck all of you, and second of all, if you try to invade us, you'll find out when we call it the Geneva Checklist, as I like to keep saying. But no. Someone presented something really important here. The article in question is talking about like positions that I would maybe term as like maybe a little bit more like quote unquote elite, especially with regards to like the academia section. And in a lot of cases, a lot of the people who do get hired like through like DEI stuff or whatever, a lot of that is like, you know, like the more, I guess, elite people from within like these minority communities. That tends to be the case. So it's not like it's still like fucks over, you know,
You
like
say elite,
white
you mean
men.
like the upper
Your argument
bracket.
is that it's only happening
I mean
here.
the upper class.
Is it?
Yes.
Upper, not
no.
like.
So if you go to other industries, if you go to engineering, if you go to software, IT, people will not have had this
Requires
experience.
college education. Hold on.
Men will be
When I
totally
say-
fine.
Yeah, it depends on
we
the
don't
industry.
mean upper in the income bracket. We just mean upper portion of whatever bracket, like not like overall top 1%.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like basically
higher than
Okay,
you know.
IT is still middle class.
Like the luckier
Doctors are like upper,
I'm
lawyers.
saying that
They're kind of,
I'm saying that the people
lawyers
tend
are
to
upper class. They
benefit-
can be upper class.
I'm
But
And
they're on the low end
also
of
to
it.
be fair, it's usually in professions that really don't matter that much. So,
like
Well, I mean,
authors.
it's
It's
in
like authors and
professions-
writers, not doctors and engineers. Well, a little bit.
The
engineers, but
professions
really
that are
not,
talked about in the article are also professions that I would argue are generally like fairly like left wing anyway, like Hollywood, academia especially, and also like journalism. And I think that
It would be
is
like
where
leisure profession.
they felt a lot more pressure. But I mean, like I did look, it did seem like that there was like DEI was still a thing that was like practiced at colleges. But again, like the people who were going to end up going to like Harvard, for example, are still going to be like, you know, they're going to be like exceptional people. If you're like picked to go to Harvard and you're like a black dude, then you probably like you're not just like they don't just take any random black dude, you know. Like there's Harvard's
the vibe of the article I got a lot was just that there was like a bunch of things happening at the same time. Like a lot of these different corners were consolidating their staffs because there was a shift, whether it be the general shift from long media contracts, so like 20 episode shows, 30 episode shows, to sort of small, neatly typed miniseries or just one-offs, and the sort of consolidation of capital within that, like sort of like organizational self-preservation. So the idea of like, okay, we're just going to keep the best of the best, and then switching to more like contracted roles.
The one guy
And as
said
this was
he
happening-
did better when he switched
Yeah.
to like features, like movies, I think, than working in
Yeah.
TV shows.
And then what happens is like that makes a lot of sense, like when you think about like back in 2014. I know it feels like a forever ago, but there was definitely like, I have this anecdotally, but I do remember a big shift away from these long, like basically television shows taking risks on long runs of shows. I don't know if you remember Heroes, but that lasted like what, season one I think was like 40 episodes, maybe not that long, but it was
22
like a whole
episodes
year
used to
of
be
long
the
Not far
seasons.
away. Like Stargate SG-1 was
point of
38
20
episodes a year, and I think it
22
went
to
for 10
24
seasons.
22 to
Hey,
24
can I answer the
episodes
oppression question?
used to be the
SDA
yeah,
gave
go
me
ahead,
$50, so I'm going to privilege you in this discussion.
What's
Bless
up?
you, Wick. Drink more cranberry juice.
Go ahead.
privileged white
Uh,
dude.
So I got one short part, and then I'll address it directly. Like, first of all, I know I've kind of had this conversation in parallel with Joe, but whiteness in general, and I think we might agree mostly in overlap, I guess, but like whiteness in general to me, especially in the way we described it, or Wick described it earlier, I think, you know, humans operate on categories or whatever. So like you say I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat to convey a broad general idea of your values, and perhaps most of your policies, but as you go down, you're going to deviate more and more away from the party. I think for most people, that's how they treat their race. When they get their census, as I said earlier, they check white because or non-Hispanic white or Hispanic white because, not because they strongly identify.
I'm sorry, $50 donator. An $100 donator is talking.
Oh, fuck.
Dirty Deeds.
That's
says
goddamn
DEA is
right.
broke. Okay, Dirty Deeds, if you're on the panel.
This
go
is
ahead.
class warfare.
Yeah, that's me. I'm right
We'll get
here.
$2.
Dude, I'm fucking
$2,
around,
dude.
dude. No, keep going. I'm just fucking with you. Keep going.
Go ahead.
I'm contemplating.
Do it.
Anyway.
Do it.
I know you want
through
do
my
you
super chat.
listen to me.
Who can give
Do you
Rick the most money? Do it.
do you have a bottle of cranberry juice?
I don't, but I can find something to drink.
No, I'll do it another time. Anyway,
I do.
So,
It's
like,
mixed
to
with
me,
vodka.
that's most most in my mind. That's and my mind and my mind of others. That's how most people treat their race. They're not like, I'm white. I strongly identify with that, and they mainly just like say they answer it in reference boxes or censuses or things like that. For the second half about the actual oppression, it's a yes and no, I guess. Yeah, I think white men or white people are absolutely oppressed. However, it's not like someone coming and pushing down upon them. It's them like fabricating a hand above their head as the market and environment and competition shifts around them. They're like, things are suddenly changing and I have a lot more competition and things are different.
Oh no,
I'm
I can't
oppressed.
keep up. I actually have to put in the work. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I would also like to put in the caveat, though. What is not reality but perception?
I am the only conscious observer in the universe. When I stop thinking of you, you cease to exist. You are nothing but my playthings. All right, we're back to solipsism. Cran grape. All right. If you finish at least half of it by the time I leave, and I'm not going to leave immediately. By the time this is over, I'll do another $50. I can't justify 100. Anyway, back to the oppression. It's just like, as Joe pointed out earlier about, and I'm sure we have tons of disagreements on economics and markets and stuff, but like this DEI thing has several different permutations, but all of them still kind of exist in their own way today. I think like 10 or 15 years ago, it started out as ESG and then kind of morphed into at the more criticality, like critical thought level of, the big scary CRT, and now we're on to DEI. These are mainly just like, and yeah, these are mainly
Silence
just like
$50 donator. Another $100 donator is speaking. Zonia
Open
TV
panels work. I'm a genius.
says,
Right?
Wig is so broke that we can hijack the panel with super
I gave you
chats.
$5, God damn it.
For $100, yes, I will allow you to oppress whoever you like on this panel. Have you been wanting to oppress a black person? For $100, I'll let you interrupt Joe Lewis. Sound good?
A true
I thought it was.
I'm not trying to yap too much. I apologize.
Go ahead.
Oh shit.
Dog,
It's
there's
just-
something that you're knocking at that I kind of want to.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm saying is, I had this argument in your Discord earlier with this other guy who I think is. It's impressive that he's dumber than Metra, but anyway. I kept asking him, do you seriously believe that firms, not talking about government, I cut out education, that firms employing DEI practices are going through their candidates. They say, we have an open position. We have one candidate who's similarly qualified to another candidate. Candidate one is John Smith, number 4,397, upper middle class suburbia, not that interesting. This other candidate, who's also similar comparable qualifications, he is from Namibia and probably worked a lot harder to get to where he was to get in this room to get an interview. Do you really think that the firm is not doing something like that when they're employing DEI in the vast majority of their hiring, rather than saying, unqualified black guy, qualified white guy? Pick black guy. Like that's not going on. Like they might be hiring more black people for these positions who may or may not be qualified, but are not critical to their operations of generating profit. And he did point out, like, if their ESG score is higher, they get more investment. Well, if they were to do that for all of their positions, they get the investment money. All of their employees are underqualified and not productive. They don't generate profit. They can't make a return on the investment, and now they go bust. So yeah, they might be banking or buffering their stats by hiring a bunch of people for non-important, less qualified, even managerial or corporate executive positions. But it's not like, unqualified black guy, hire him just because make ESG score good. No, these are by and large, like with Harvard, these are very comparable students in admissions. and they go, well, we already have this many white people, or this many Asians, or this many this, that, and the other. We're going to pick the one that's less represented. For the firm, it's like, this guy from Namibia, maybe there's some unknown advantage that we're going to gain by hiring somebody different. Yeah.
Asian students literally won a class action lawsuit based on the fact that they had to score something like 300 to 500 points higher on the SAT in order to be accepted. So that's just flat out fucking wrong.
Well, no,
flat
no,
out fucking wrong.
The Asian
And hold on, let me just say, because Lachman brought this up earlier, and I know you're not going to admit it, because classic characteristic of the third world is that you can never admit to wrongdoing, because you have to save face. And I understand
Jesus
that.
Christ.
Wick has inflicted this microaggression on all of
Third
you.
world here. I'm curious.
Yeah, like
Also,
1, 2, 3, 4,
what
5,
at
United
least 6
States of America soon.
Wait, what
Answer
third
Wick's
world
question, please.
What third
What do you
world
consider
Asian
the third
country?
world?
Now.
Malaysia?
Yeah, what do you consider the third world? Can you define?
Are
the
we
third
doing?
world?
Because
Are we
most of
doing the
these
classic
Asians are
sense of
Chinese,
not
Korean,
USSR?
Taiwanese, Japanese.
Can we get at
Vietnamese?
least one other person speaking at the same time so I can answer? I need to answer 3 of you at the same time. I was thinking like Detroit. You guys are using way too many syllables when you ask me these questions. I'm sorry. I'm just some dumb hick from South Jersey.
I'm just some dumb
Hey,
hick from the Ozarks, and I understand exactly what's going on. So knock that shit off. What do you mean by the third world?
Because third world, historically, third world was to reference those outside that outside the USSR and United States power politics scape.
Sure,
So,
I-
and then
but I
usually
wanna-
now it's like some vague concept of those people
What
are poor.
the
So I don't know.
hell?
Well, I no. Hold on, just dirty.
Poor
please,
and
please,
cannibals.
please. I
Go
want to
ahead.
know what Ash thinks the third world is. What does he mean?
He's
when he
talking
says
about
third world?
importing the third world to the United States.
Okay, well, I'm asking
I
him.
literally
I'm
never
asking
fucking
him
said that.
It's just
what he
another
means by the
insecure
third
white
world.
boy.
Let him answer.
He's not one of those
I
things.
literally just said, well, I give you one quality of the third world, which is prioritizing saving face over admitting that you ever did anything wrong. Because I had a
How about
follow up
this?
to that.
Ash, can I
But
try?
that's the one
Sounds
thing
like
that I've said
Putin to
about the
me.
third world so far.
Ash, I feel like I've always
Everybody?
tried to give you good grace or represent you fairly. Can I try? The modern interpretation that I understand after the Cold War was over is third world typically means undeveloped or underdeveloped. Second world is developing, and then first world is the developed, your highly productive Western nations. Is that acceptable?
Okay. No, I was just literally using it as an insult for people who prioritize
So you weren't
saving face
you weren't
over
trying
admitting
to
that they
have
did
a
wrong.
serious conversation. You just want to
In-
sling insults like an insecure little white boy.
I don't
No,
understand how
no,
you're
no.
linking like the idea of
Racism
saving.
is not allowed here unless you
Holy
give
fuck.
Wick
Anyways, I'm
$100.
just gonna go back to the question that I had following that up. Wick, assuming in the best interest, let's just give everybody perfect grace. We'll assume that it's just a bunch of stupid white people, stupid white men, assuming that they've been locked out of these jobs. And coincidentally, these corporations and academic institutions have been bragging about it, but not actually doing it for the past 24 to 40 years, right? It's only a matter of perception that has been egged on. What would you do, given that, again, coincidentally, Gen Z men who are college educated are now having as poor job prospects as Gen Z men who are not college educated? They're on track to be as poor, if not poorer, than their black counterparts. Now, everybody is going to share the black experience.
They're making that choice.
What?
They are making that choice.
Okay.
They have
okay.
nobody to
Wick,
blame but themselves.
what would you offer now that there's parity between these groups coming up and they're going to have the same problems, it seems? What would you offer them? Do these people have enough? Are they going to have enough in common for you
when
to
you say,
form a
what do I offer
coalition?
them, like me personally, or what would I suggest that?
Yeah, let's say you're president tomorrow, right?
Okay,
and you
president
have
tomorrow, and I'm going to make
black men on one side.
policy.
Things are
You're
bad for
asking me to
them.
make a policy. You're asking me to make what
Yeah.
policy I would make to attract young white men to my side politically.
And well, to form a coalition specifically, not just targeted at them.
What?
Because you can
I'm
promise
so
anybody the moon.
Ash, do you I'm kind of confused here. Do you just want a coalition that includes white people in the mix, or do you want a coalition around a particular interest that transcends people regardless of their race? Like, I don't know which one you want here.
A coalition that includes white people, but is a coalition and includes like that. If it's a coalition that necessarily includes other people,
Sure.
and so that would be something that transcends
Okay, I'll give
race.
you a I'll give you
Not
a
exactly, but
policy
sure.
that I think
Yes,
that
exactly. Actually, that's what a
I could-
fucking coalition
hold on,
means.
just
No,
real quick, just real quick. I'll give you a
you.
policy that I think that would be a good policy that would help young men of all races and young women too feel more able to compete in life in general. I think one of the things that we can absolutely do is we can promise, right? Hey, if you make less than 50,000 a year, okay, and you want to get a home, okay, for the first time, if you want to stop renting and you want to start buying, you know, if you make less than $50,000 a year, we're going to help you out with 0 interest loans and things like that. We're going to take away a lot of these interest loans that you have from the banks, and we're going to just say, hey, the first X amount, again, depending on what size of home you want to buy here, right?
And this
we're
is
going to give
first-time
you a
homeowners?
check.
And then
I think
Wick,
that is a good policy because it doesn't have anything to do with race. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. It says if you make less than X a year, you get this benefit. Now, again, I'm not an economist, right? And the exact percentage and the exact like line we would draw here, I'd let my advisors tell me.
Wick,
right?
I fully support you.
It's a solvable problem.
Then
Wick for
Wick,
president.
we can take those loans, which can be essentially called mortgages, and divide them up into securities and sell them on the stock market around the world.
No. No.
Huh.
So like, okay, so like the thing that I'm trying to understand here is that I don't like, who cares if you're white? Who cares if you're black? Like, there are structural inequities that exist.
Amen.
Just engage with them. Like, actually engage with the problems. But you can't engage with the problems from a racialized lens, or you're going to lose every single white person on the planet. That's always
You spent the entire time on this panel talking through a racialized lens and not answering questions, going back and forth about how black coaches are oppressed, despite making up a disproportionate amount of the fucking NFL.
I never said black coaches were oppressed.
Oh, sorry. Was it not? Oh, it wasn't coaches. It was just positions within the.
I never said any position was oppressed. I said.
Oh, you weren't talking with a negative connotation about how people were forced into positions and not able to enjoy other positions within their $100,000 to $1 million jobs over and over again.
Okay, so sometimes when I talk, I'm just.
Were you speaking negatively about them or not? That's a very simple yes or no fucking question. You were not speaking negatively about them.
Oh, is somebody getting upsetty spaghetti?
Over the entire fucking panel. Are you sure about that?
1,000%.
Okay.
Well, can you?
That's what I mean by third world, by the way.
Hold on, can you give me an example of what you think that Joe said that was derogatory towards a group?
Yes, referring to an overrepresentation, negative manner, and negative tone about overrepresentation among quarterbacks and wide receivers. I believe you have one other position specifically within the team.
I can restate what I said.
You never mentioned quarterbacks, wide receivers, and another position with the team and their overrepresentation.
I was talking in particular about the ideas of how some jobs.
Did you mention
considered?
You gonna let him answer, dude?
Yeah.
No, did you mention it? The answer, it's a yes or no question. You could go, you could explain it afterwards.
Pisco.
But I don't want you to run away from it.
No, he's not Pisco, he's Gibbs. This is Gibbs behavior, right? This is
Pisco, I'm embodying the black.
Yes or no? Gibbs wearing Pisco's clothes.
No, what I was trying to say that certain positions are overrepresented. This is true in any sport. And there's a bunch of reasons why that overrepresentation may exist. But if you're trying to solve a problem, if you think something is a problem, you need to analyze why you think it's a problem. I don't think overrepresentation of certain positions is a problem in any sport. I do, however, take a particular issue, very, very, very small in the opportunities that exist for people to end up in certain positions, like head coaches. There's a
Thank you for
multitude of
admitting it
tracks.
afterwards. It took us a long fucking time to get there, but thank you for admitting it.
Because we were jabbering over him. Right? Because
There's
every
a
time
multitude of
just like,
tracks. There's a multitude of tracks that people can enter into in the NFL to be assistant coaches. This is the baseline. However, when it comes to those assistant coaches ending up being head coaches, there's a barrier that's happening there. I don't know what the barrier is, and the NFL doesn't want to show their data. So we're kind of stuck in a lurch. And every time they try to do things,
It doesn't
like
matter. You don't think it's negative anyways, right? You weren't complaining about it.
Am I having a stroke right now? Did I just say that like something I take particular issue with, even though it's kind of
Well,
small?
because I asked you and you
just
said
didn't like
no.
your tone, boy.
I didn't call him boy.
I called you
County
boy.
Energy. I
I kind of want to go back to Wick's thing because he was talking about actual
you did call
policy.
it third world, though. I mean,
Yeah, that was.
I mean,
Listen, I think
South
boy
Jersey
is
Third
worse.
world country,
That's
so South Jersey is the third world
Well, yeah,
country.
'cause it's
Tiny
out
is
in the
absolutely
open.
third. I will not disagree with you there.
I wanted
Yeah,
to
Wilson
get the
County
mic
sucks,
because
man.
two people haven't really spoken much here. I want to give the mic to Puffin Master, and then I want to hear from Psycho. Okay, Psycho.
Me? Psychor. Get it right.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
It's okay.
Puffin
Hi.
Master, what are you here for? What do you got?
I had a few things. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to go down like every single one. I'm
Pick your favorite.
my favorite. That's a hard question. I'm gonna go with the most productive. How about that one?
All my questions are hard. Okay, but go ahead.
Ooh, that's a very very hard and wet. Okay.
It moved.
No. Okay. So there's a lot of things that Lactoid was kind of allowed to say without any pushback, and it seems like I might need to check the names because I'm terrible with names. I think your name's Joe. It seems like Joe's the most sort of position, the most posture to like kind of take on those problems that he was bringing up, and I don't know if you just missed them or if there was just too many things brought up and you couldn't hit everything. Like for example, like this is an easy one. He repeatedly said that like the definition of equity is like equality of outcome. But that's not what equity means. I don't think anyone thinks that that's what equity means.
That's generally what equity means in this context. It's not like equity in a company, like I own a certain amount of equity. Equity is generally defined as, instead of equality of opportunity, which is equality in the most base terms, it's equality in outcome. You know, not perfect.
That's not necessarily correct. You can have equity without that definition.
I think what it more means is like equality, taking into account like structures and that kind of stuff, right? It's very like, I say lefty, but you know what I mean. Like it's not, because I wasn't just speaking to like the equity in a company. I was like, it's his definition. I can't find his definition. If I Google it, it comes up on like right wing shit, right? So like maybe like I said, maybe there was just like he was rattling off 1,000 things, but like. Jody, did you pick up on that, or did you just what? How do you feel?
Yeah, so my mantra is if it's good enough to let the panel keep going, I let it slide. So sometimes I let people just say things and they just kind of cook. But yeah, I disagree with DEI. I've understood it as DEI is concerned about a few different things. That's going to vary where you find it. The diversity part is asking, do I have invisible and visible identities in the room for decision-making processes, hiring, and then just the labor force generally. The equity part is, are these workers or students or employees or whatever word you want to do, are they being treated fairly when they are going through the hiring process, when they are actually in the workplace or in the university itself? And then the inclusion part is basically trying to answer the question, does everybody have the proper institutional knowledge, structural knowledge,
access
and
to
other
resources.
types of some type of like institutional access, so that they know that these opportunities and the job itself or the field itself even exist for you to enter into with regard to your visible and invisible identities. Sorry, that was long as fuck.
You're good. Like so a lot of what he was doing there was he was kind of everything that he was kind of getting away with saying was building to the ultimate case. He also did this thing where he I think willfully entangled and confused the idea of like affirmative action with DEI, where he was speaking about quotas and he was speaking about like the idea that we just need to seek out minorities as over
underrepresented minorities for jobs.
Yeah, seek out underrepresented minorities and give them opportunities that they have just flat out not earned. Like there was no,
Is it incorrect to say that's primarily like a government objective, like jobs in government was more like driven towards that affirmative action rather than the DEI concept? Is that
I believe that there was well, my understanding is that right now it's been ruled.
Oh yeah, it has been, but
yeah,
I think historically,
Historically, I think it was affirmative action. That was and also, by the way, prior to the ESG and all that other shit, that was the thing that conservatives very often would be upset about is affirmative action. Prior to the whole ESG
I think
shit.
I think what they're doing is they're using the link like they're describing affirmative action and they're labeling it DEI. I think is what's happening, and I think when they do that, it kind of forces the conversation because y'all were Kalinda was giving we shouldn't.
Are quotas not like in some ways part of that though, like with the diversity aspect of it? And by the way, to be clear, I don't think I do think that diversity is a good thing. Like it's good to hire a bunch of different people from different like backgrounds, like what STA said earlier about the idea of hiring the guy from Namibia. Like maybe that guy has like a unique perspective to offer, and he obviously worked his ass off to get where he was. If he came like to the United States from a country like Namibia or whatever. And so yeah, I think that is really a good thing to have that kind of thing rather than it just be like that not being considered at all, because having people from different backgrounds can be useful. They might have different experiences and they might be able to offer interesting and new perspectives that people may have not considered prior to that.
It seems like the line that was drawn in the sand by the Supreme Court or however that resolved was like you basically just can't be like we can't hire you because you're white. I think it seems like that's
yeah.
Just real quick, there's a couple angles to this conversation, right? And I understand there's a legal angle, and I think that that's fair. And when we talk about things like how does DEI work on from a hiring standpoint and company standpoint versus how does affirmative action work from a company standpoint, things like that, I think it's fair to bring up the legal stuff. But I guess for me, and this is just a personal thing, I'm more curious how culture is impacted by these things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to talk about that.
Hold on.
I'd like to try as well, Joe, once you're done.
Well, let's give it to Joe first.
I gotta go.
Let the black man speak.
Kalinda. Well, if you have last words, go ahead, Kalinda. I know you got to go. Thanks for being here, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll probably come back and listen to the rest of this later. But yeah, I should go because it's getting late and I had something else that I wanted to do. But yeah, I don't know. No, I think I've already said most of what I needed to say. If people were interested in like, I guess a lib perspective, then you can find me at Kalinda, Kalinda, on YouTube. If you just search me, you'll find me. It's at Kalinda Live. And I'm on Twitter at the Lib Girl, except girl is spelled with a U instead of an I. Anyway, yeah, it was nice. Thanks for having me on. Have a good night, everybody. Have fun screaming at each other or whatever. Yes, Happy Christmas. Bye.
Merry ho ho ho.
Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Merry.
All right, people. For those of you who still stayed, goddamn, that was very weird. Can't believe that Gibbs did that. He set that money on fire. What the fuck? Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna go watch Sloaner on Live and Learn now and probably go play some video games. I'm sure Chase isn't still here. He probably went to go watch Learnerbox talk on Live and Learn. But you know what? I will eventually, yes, I will. I am going to get to that stuff that I talked about before. I just wanted to I'm going to do it when there are more people around to do it with. So yeah. Anyhow, have a good one, guys. I will see you all later. Bye.